Week 1 of the NFL season is in the books. And today here at Spike Week, we're going game by game to break down everything that happened, both a little bit of film take from watching every game so you don't have to, and the data, who was playing the most, who wasn't playing that maybe we were hoping would play more. Context about the touches, who performed well in their roles, and everything there in between, so we can make some better decisions and maybe feel a little bit better about our fantasy football teams heading in to week 2. Let's do it. GM. It is a wonderful Tuesday morning. I woke up and we turned the air off. It's been beautiful weather here in the 70s or so. It's football season when you wake up and it's like real cold. I got to put the hoodie on to come down into the office because my hands are cold. It's going to be nice and warm actually later today, but it's nice and brisk morning, a fall morning after a fun football game, I guess, depending upon who you are a fan of last night between the Bears and the Vikings, a tale of two halves to round out. At least we got two somewhat better. Last night was not quite Sunday Night Football. Sunday Night Football, obviously, game of the week, game of the year in week 1, Bills, Ravens. At least we got a nice close to week 1 because, quite frankly, not the best, not the highest scoring. If you go look at your fantasy teams, not the highest scoring week that we've had. Hopefully that continues to trend up. Defense is a little ahead of the offenses to start the year. But here's what we're going to do. Now that we're in season, if you've been following the channel for the last few months, what we've been doing is just recapping what's going on across training camp every single week. And the preseason, once the preseason got here, what we're going to do in season is on Tuesday mornings, we'll recap what happened in the games from the past week. We'll dive into the week 2 slate tomorrow, going game by game for the week 2 slate tomorrow. And then we'll draft some teams on Thursday. Friday is going to be kind of an open free square. We'll mix in some members only type stuff on Fridays, but that's the general plan starting today with a little bit of game by game. What I'm going to try to do on Tuesdays is a little bit of like an all-inclusive process. We'll walk through some of the most notable, metrics and stuff like that. We'll go game by game. I try to watch every single one of these games. I try to watch specifically from like the all 22, go back and rewatch from the all 22, at least at the beginning of the season. Obviously things like that's not out for the Monday Night Football game yet and all that. So we'll check that out a little bit later today. There'll be some film bro takes, right? For anybody that did not know, I played college football, coached high school football. So, I'm not an NFL scout, but I bring a little bit of X's and O's, son of a high school football coach, et cetera, et cetera. So I like to grind the tape a little bit, at least to start the season, to get a feel for what's going on with all of these players, teams, some of the context that can be missed by following the box score, or, you're just trying to enjoy your Sunday watching Red Zone as you should. And there's some things that can be missed. So we'll try to grind some of that, but we'll specifically be going through a lot of the utilization data, the performance data, who stood out this week, who is standing out, in a few weeks over the course of the entire season, who's maybe trending up, trending down, et cetera, et cetera. If you saw on the thumbnail, there's a couple of particular players that are most notable in that category that maybe are not getting all the shine that I think necessarily they deserve, or the lack of shine that maybe the FUD that we should be putting out there about some certain guys. But GM, to everyone, hit that like button on your way in. Let's go ahead and start to dig in. What I actually want to do first is, instead of starting with a game by game, start with a little bit of some of the overall, just like who performed sort of the best, if you will, this particular week. Let me move my dome out of the way here. So I like to use a lot of the PFF data. I highly recommend it if being a football nerd is something that you're interested in. When we talk about a lot of different metrics, you can get a overwhelming majority of them from Pro Football Focus. It, of course, does require a premium subscription. And I want to walk through kind of some of the who performed the best, who performed the worst, and kind of everything there on in between. So we'll bounce around a little bit. Let me share this whole window so I can bounce back and forth between tabs. So it's most fun to start with the receivers. There's also the most information about the receivers that I think is actionable. We'll talk about the running backs next, and then we'll dive into a little bit of quarterback play as well. But just some guys that particularly stood out, I think. Let's go over here to Sumer Sports. I'm a big fan of them as well. If we filter down to the wide receiver, you saw on PFF that Isaac Tesla popping at the top of their grades, and that's great. And I do think that he had one of the sickest catches of the entire week, Isaac Tesla, but he only ran 3 routes. So I have this filtered down for you need to have run at least 10 routes this week to get a quick snapshot of kind of, okay, who is the best amongst all of the receivers. This is filtered for receiving yards, but if we filter for yards per route run, which is a little bit better metric, I think, to understand how efficient an individual player was. Something that I do want to check here really quickly because let's do this and then go to find Diggs because somebody mentioned that. Yeah, so PFF has Diggs for 37 routes, which obviously clearly impacts his yards per route run down to 1.54. So something to consider here. We might want to be taking a little bit of this routes for Stephon Diggs with a grain of salt. But nonetheless, at the very top of your screen, now I got to move my dome out of the way down here. The poster boy of the holy shit, what a performance in week 1 for me was Zay Flowers. There's a lot of guys who were awesome in week 1. We will definitely get to them, and you're seeing some of them on your screen right here. But the number one, if the Ravens do have to throw the football more, and maybe even if they don't, because Zay Flowers only ran 23 routes. He was targeted on 40% of them. He had a 47% target share for the Baltimore Ravens. He had 89 yards after the catch. His ADOT was okay at just shy of 7. Not amazing, but not a total, check down merchant. For instance, you see CeeDee Lamb with a lower ADOT than Zay Flowers had. They were targeting him all over the field. He was dominant in doing so. He made plays after the catch to an insane 6.2 yards per route run to top the season. Obviously, in a losing effort, maybe they should have even used Zay Flowers a little bit more in that game. So, maybe you're not punting it back to Josh Allen and the Bills. But nonetheless, on the thumbnail, the poster boy of this week, that if you have Zay Flowers, start him. He scored a touchdown, of course. Shout out to us, one of our futures bets on spikeweek.com. We have a futures blueprint that premium subscribers can get access to. One of them was over 4.5 Zay Flowers receiving touchdowns on the season, and we got that one off. Came out with a bang. We're pro Zay Flowers here, and this was far better than even I expected. Outperforming Puka Nacua, as you see second here, was impressive. There were only so let's remove Stephon Diggs from this equation, and let's say there were only 6 wide receivers with a yards per route run over 3, and Garrett Wilson down here at 3.65 on 26 routes with an insane 43% target share, right? Just absolute dominant, 35% targets per route run. Like, these guys were the shining superstars. Now, Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, the Packers didn't throw very much, only 22 pass attempts, but Romeo Doubs, essentially a full-time wide receiver. Jaden Reed, not so much a full-time wide receiver, but it was still nice to see an efficient performance from Jaden Reed. The Packers were awesome. I think when we get to that game, we're concerned about the Detroit Lions, and I think that's completely fair. I also think the Packers might just be pretty damn awesome. And so they have 2 wide receivers. And actually, if I scroll down a little bit here, you will see Dontavian Wicks is on the list somewhere. Maybe that adjusted. So he was yesterday. Where's Wicks at? Maybe not. Oh, he doesn't have 10 routes. He didn't run 10 routes, I don't believe. Wicks. If I remove, let's go down to 1. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So Wicks only ran 10 routes, but he was good himself as well with 30 yards. Jordan Love was balling. The Green Bay Packers were balling. That's one of my takeaways from this week, alongside Zay Flowers. Awesome. Garrett Wilson against a good Pittsburgh Steelers defense. Obviously, we expected coming into the year, right, that Garrett Wilson would be the target dominant player on the New York Jets. But we also, the fantasy community, had like some concerns about Justin Fields. How much are they going to pass? How much is Fields going to scramble? Is Fields accurate enough? There were some, rumblings out of camp like, oh, this doesn't look great with Fields as a passer. Well, it looked great with Fields as a passer in week 1. Obviously, they lose a close game with the Pittsburgh Steelers on a 60-yard Chris Boswell field goal, outgained the Steelers by gargantuan amounts, almost 150 more yards than the Steelers had. And Garrett Wilson, if you have Garrett Wilson on your teams, start him. Start your studs, Garrett Wilson. If he can do this against the Steelers, I think Garrett Wilson is in for a pretty good season. The other, obviously, it's insane how good Puka Nacua is that I'm going to sort of gloss over him at this unreal performance. 23 routes, 10 catches, 130 yards, 40% target share. He did it with Yak. He did it down the field. He caught almost every ball thrown his way. And he was targeted on almost 50% of his routes against an elite Houston Texans defense. What Puka Nacua did was just absolutely outrageous. And he's so good that I'm sort of I know I just didn't, but was about to gloss over, just like, oh, ho hum, just another absolutely dominant Puka Nacua performance. The risks are still all there. I certainly understand why Puka Nacua went where he went in drafts, but I think this week also proved that he was way too good for his ADP. It was all external factors holding back Puka Nacua. Devontae Adams was not a concern for Puka Nacua, and he certainly was not in week 1. That dude is good. that dude is really good. If he could ever get in the end zone, that would be a nice boon to his fantasy profile. But I don't think you guys need any backing to start Puka. But maybe the biggest story, and not just because he was really good, with which he was, but was Jackson Smith and Jigba. If you hadn't seen this, this is insane. So another stat I want to pull up for you guys is shout out to my friends and buddies over at Add More Funds. I still like to use this site that we built many moons ago. But if you see here, it has some. I just like the presentation of the receiving data. So if I sort by air yards percentage, I have never seen. So first of all, JSN, right? Similar thing to the Garrett Wilson. We knew he was going to get a lot of the targets. Did we know he was going to have a 59% target share in week 1 for the Seattle Seahawks? I don't think so. Turns it into 9 for 121. But what's even crazier is the air yards percentage. So when they threw it to someone else, they weren't exactly throwing it down the field. Everything was JSN down the field, everywhere. The entire passing game. We like to say, and I like to say, we built the plane around this guy, or whatever. The plane was JSN. It wasn't. They didn't build the plane out of him. They just hopped on and said, "Go fly through the air, brother." 90% of the team's air yards were Jackson Smith. He was it. Now that's fun if you drafted JSN. Awesome week for JSN teams. Didn't get in the end zone, of course, which stinks. But some of the things that we'll talk about here today when we start to get into game by game in a few minutes is the sustainability of some of this stuff. And this is Mike McDonald. This is not a plan. This is not how you win NFL football games. And it's part of why they lost. You can't build your entire passing game out of only one individual player. Cooper Kupp, on the flip side, we'll talk about it when we get to that game. Not great. If you were betting on the Cooper Kupp bounce back, Certainly nothing is ever over in week one. These are just this is just all the stuff we're going to talk about today is generally describing what happened. It is not the end all be all, but it was not the reason why you draft someone like a Cooper Kupp is you're pretty much expecting a nice roll out of the gate. And he did not get that because it was literally the JSN show with there was no opener on the JSN show. He just comes out and lets it rip at that comedy show. No one is opening for him. No opening acts in Seattle. Just another couple of quick notable things. Ricky Pierce, obviously CD is CD. Ricky Pearsall takes over the passing game for the 49ers. Only 18%, targets per, 18% of his routes he was targeted on, but he was really good and really, really efficient. So I am excited for Ricky Pearsall, though the 49ers, which we'll get to, the house is on fire. That this is fine. Not quite the level of the Dolphins, but a little bit of a this is fine meme going on in San Francisco. Ricky Pearsall, though, kind of the last man standing. And we'll see how that equates, what that turns into with the 49ers. Jonathan, resident Lions fan, says, haven't hit the panic button yet, but the level of concern has risen sharply on the Lions. I think that's the appropriate take. Let's look at some rushing, because I think you will see some funny. Let's go to attempts, because this should probably help me find Gibbs a little bit better. How many? I don't even know how many rushes Gibbs had. Only 10, 9. I would be concerned. The answer always, even after week one, is when someone says, like, are you worried about this thing? The answer is always yes. Every single time, are you worried about this thing? Yep, definitely. I'm worried about every potential negative factor. It's always a worry, right? You're always you're allowed to be worried, but am I acting on this? Do I think it's over? Is it like a Pounds, bangs gavel? This has been decided? Of course not. I think the Packers are really good. I think the Lions ran into a little bit of a buzzsaw. I think the Lions are not as good as they're going to be later in this season. I think the offensive line, the new offensive line needs a little bit of time. I think the defense will be better than it was in week one, and all of those things can kind of come together to help them sort of get back to maybe not what they were at their peak last year, but still one of the best teams, certainly in the NFC, I think is in the cards for the Lions. But we'd be lying if we said it wasn't concerning. Jahmyr Gibbs, 9 carries for 19 yards is not what we were hoping for out of our first round pick. But David Montgomery did not fare any better with 11 carries for 25 yards. What I will say is, we'll get to that game on the split of the backfield split. I think from a touch perspective was a little bit misleading. It was a wonky game. A couple of guys with heavy volume and not so heavy efficiency. Christian McCaffrey getting the Christian McCaffrey treatment like we expected, but the 49ers were quite terrible on offense. 22 carries for 69 yards, and a truly horrific, honestly, performance by CMC. Shoot, I should have had open Let's do min rush is 10. Here's my one of my other favorite stats of week one. As good as Zay Flowers was, if we sort by success rate, right? Again, shout out Sumer. If we look at all the ball carriers of week one, and we sort by success rate, Christian McCaffrey had 22 carries, and 0 of them were successful runs. Now, success rate is not only an individual running back player metric. It is, of course, a team, blocking, scheming, all that kind of stuff comes into play from a running back success rate perspective. You see some other guys who I expect to have very good seasons also at 0, including David Montgomery that we just mentioned, Tony Pollard, Chuba Hubbard, James Cook, Ashton Genty, Bucky Irving, right? Bijan, 0% success rate on the ground. Chase Brown, 21 carries, 1 successful run for Chase Brown. Jonathan Taylor, right? Some of the backs that we know are really good had 0% success rates. But the hope for Christian McCaffrey is that we would get out of the gates a little bit hotter on this volume. And I think the Seattle defense is very good, but everything's sort of crumbling around CMC. We're going to get the volume. until the body breaks down with George Kittle hurt, with Jawan Jennings hurt, with Brandon Ayuk still out. But are we going to get efficiency from Christian McCaffrey? That remains to be seen. Tony Pollard sort of writing it off. The Titans are not that great on offense, and they were at Denver against an awesome Denver defense, a little bit similar for CMC. The Chuba Hubbard thing is not ideal. 0% success rate for Chuba Hubbard is also not ideal. James Cook is a little bit shocking, but I think that speaks a little bit more to the Ravens than it does to James Cook. Ashton Jeanty as well. Something I noted in that game, Raiders Patriots, is certainly without Christian Gonzalez on the Raiders side, but overall, I think if you remember when Mike Vrabel, the new Patriots head coach, was in Tennessee, that they would often have very pass funnel heavy defenses, meaning you could not run the ball on them very well, but you could pass on them, right? It would funnel you to the pass as an opposing offense. And it's only one game, but if I were to, again, and there was no Christian Gonzalez for the Patriots, which is a really important defensive back for them. But if I were to, give a takeaway from what the Patriots defense is going to be this year, it's kind of what every Mike Vrabel defense has been from a pass. They're going to stop the run, and they're going to be a little bit vulnerable through the air. Geno Smith threw for nearly 400 yards in that game, and they completely shut down Ashton Jeanty. He was tackled for a loss on 32% of his carries, and he had 0 successful carries, and they didn't even really load the box. So I think that they're going to be able to stop the run in New England. We'll see about stopping the pass. Bucky Irving had an awesome role, but was not super successful in it against the Falcons. Not really concerned there. Tristan Wirfs will be back. The passing game will get a little bit better with Tampa when Godwin comes back and Cade Otton gets fully healthy. I know he was out there, but gets fully healthy this week, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's some of the most notable. I didn't do the best runners. Let's do. That's a lot of the quarterbacks. Let's go over here because it's just grade. It's just a grade. I was one of the guys fading Breece Hall in the 4th round with all of the committee news, but Breece Hall was balling. The Jets were balling. That Jets run game, as advertised, with Justin Fields, Breece Hall running, zone read, RPO, just the introduction of an 11th man into the run game, right? Think about how different that is when you have to play against Christian McCaffrey and those other guys who struggle with the run, the quarterback being a weapon in the run game that the defense has to account for. And especially when it's Justin Fields, one of the best runners, right? This helps Derrick Henry. Why everybody's, gushing over Derrick Henry, and he's fucking awesome. He looks as good as ever. He was incredible in that game on Sunday. Lamar Jackson helps unlock that because you have to account for him. Josh Allen does this, right? These rushing quarterbacks do this. No one better than Lamar, but no one better than Justin Fields outside of that. And so it worked exceptionally well for Breece Hall, 19 carries for 107 yards. He was the focal point of the backfield. So idiots like myself through 1 week who were out on Breece at cost. He didn't score a touchdown, so got a little bit fingers crossed bailed out there, but a good start for Breece Hall for sure. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt at the top here. Also, I think a notable, really strong performance from him. Chris Rodriguez inactive. So the hopes of all 4 guys being active or the hopes of Chris Rodriguez having an early season role did not happen. What was interesting, though, about the Washington deployment of the backfield. So you see only 12 snaps for JCM. He didn't play very much. And in the first half, he really didn't play. It was Eckler and some McNichols, but mostly Austin Eckler in the first half. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt got the overwhelming majority of his touches in the second half. I want to say 6 carries. So when he was on the field, he was getting the rock in the first half, but he really wasn't playing very much. He finished with 10 for 82. His touchdown run was sick, a beautiful jump cut, bounce to the outside and score. I thought he looked awesome. I think you should be really excited about your Bill shares. But it was at least notable that, he's probably not going to score a touchdown every week. And he's also he had 2 carries for more than 40 yards on the final drive. So we were really sitting at like 8 for 40 without a catch and a touchdown heading into the final drive. And then he ripped a long one, which is awesome, but it was a sort of a garbage time run. I think it's both simultaneously really, really bullish for him and okay, he's probably not going to get 20 carries anytime soon type of a situation, but he can earn it. He might earn it. And he started to earn it this week. So total wheels up for Bill, but just some context in, like, when you just look at 10 for 82 and 1, you think, oh man, it's absolute total wheels up. And it still might be, but he didn't play very much. And a lot of his production came on the very last garbage time drive. One long run, essentially. He was fine before the one long run, but I thought he played really well generally. So I shouldn't say fine. I should say I thought he played really well. Let's see here. Cam Scatterbo, very minimal touches. Travis Etienne. We should talk about the Jaguars, and then we can segue from here on into Thursday Night Football, because it'll be a perfect segue into their big trade. But Travis Etienne, I think, ushered Tank Bigsby on out the door. Did Travis Etienne in this opener? Ripped a really long 70, as you see here, a long of 71. Bill's long was 42 over here. Cam Scatterbo with a long of -1, but grading really well is funny. Travis Etienne, 4 carries of more than 10 yards, a long of 71, forced 3 missed tackles, 92 yards after contact. He was great. Travis Etienne was great in this game. It was the Carolina Panthers, so grain of salt and all that. They were in historically bad run defense last year with hopes that they would be better this year. Was not the case in week 1. So we'll see how Etienne looks moving forward. But the Liam Cohen effect in terms of rushing efficiency has really shown itself to be true so far for Travis Etienne in week 1, 16 for 143. So it wasn't just the big 70-yard run. He was still all right in the other carries from an efficiency perspective. I think, wheels up, at least in the short term, for Travis Etienne. Obviously, as I said, he ushered Tank Bigsby out the door. Tank Bigsby last night traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. Weird sort of reporting around the Eagles. Certainly not good as the resident Will Shipley, Slappy, the resident Will Shipley, big bag holder. You never want to see your backup have someone acquired onto the team in sort of wait and see mode. I've been in wait and see mode on Will Shipley since the Thursday Night Football game because he got hurt. He had a rib injury, returning kicks. You could spin this a million, right? I could go straight spin doctor, cope doctor, whatever on this if we wanted to, and say mentioned that this has nothing to do with Shipley's injury. And they got Tank Bigsby because they like him as a kick returner. Were some of the things that the Eagles were saying. But obviously, this, you never want another talented back to come in. I'm still hopeful that if something were to happen to Saquon Barkley, that Will Shipley would be an awesome fantasy asset to have. This certainly is a thorn in the side of that. But I will say, even if Saquon Barkley were to go down this week, I think that, AJ Dillon was going to play, or they were going to go get another back, right? Audric Estime on the practice squad. They were going to do something else. Shipley was not going to play 100. He's not going to become the new Christian McCaffrey or whatever. That wasn't going to happen. I think AJ Dillon is going to get cut. It's still overall bad for Will Shipley. It's still overall really smart, I think, by the Philadelphia Eagles to come in and scoop this distressed asset, who I think is a pretty good runner in Tank Bigsby, could be pretty successful behind their offensive line. So it's like bad for Tank, but the contingent value is interesting now for Tank, and it's like bad for Shipley, but is it really bad? I think it's just sort of wait and see mode. Overall, a bit down for everybody involved outside of Travis Etienne. And I'm very curious about that. Everyone's saying this trade makes Tootin. Everyone's saying Tank trade makes Tootin Liam's Bucky. I think it makes Etienne Liam's Bucky. Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, we're very excited for Bashal Tootin as a talent, and I think that that's completely reasonable. But we have no indications that he's anything like Bucky Irving in terms of their plans. They had all 4 running backs active, and that includes LaQuint Allen. LaQuint Allen got in the game before Bashal Tutin did in week 1. And Travis Etienne was the workhorse. And this wasn't like Etienne was Rachaad White and just like super inefficient and, just out there grinding out Najee Harris-esque yards. He was great. He was operating more like Bucky. Travis Etienne was. Once upon a time, we were very excited for Travis Etienne's talent. I'm not as excited about Travis Etienne. So far, this whole situation from my portfolio hasn't been the best, but I would be most excited for Travis Etienne right now. Bashal Tutin still has work to do to earn a real role. Even without Tank, he has work to do. So is the runway a lot more clear? Sure as shit is. It is absolutely possible that Tutin earns his way into a very real role. But I think as of right now, it's Travis Etienne's backfield. And I would feel very good about having Travis Etienne teams. Tutin is a second half play like Bucky was. Sure, but like Travis, is he going to take over Travis Etienne? Right? Like Travis, in order to be a second half play like Bucky was, Travis Etienne has to be Rachaad White. If Travis Etienne is good, there can't be a Bucky Irving in the backfield if there's already a guy operating like Bucky Irving in the backfield, right? Tutin can't be Bucky if Etienne is doing the Bucky stuff. Travis Etienne is not like, this is a former first round pick. Like, how old is he? 24? 26. So not even close. But Travis Etienne, 20, like theoretically in his prime, like I said, I was not a huge Travis Etienne guy, so L to me, and he looked awesome. So that's I'm not gonna rush to like make bold proclamations about what's gonna happen in the Jacksonville Jaguars backfield. What I will say is, like, the point of this show is in this moment, it's absolutely more clean for Tutin to get there, but it's also more clean for LaQuint Allen to get there, and it's also more clean for Travis Etienne to just be the guy. Right now, he's the guy. That's why Tank is gone. Tank is not gone because Tutin is the next Bucky. He's gone because they got offered a 5th and a 6th round pick from the Eagles, and they already were dressing 4 backs on game days, and that makes things difficult. Liam Cohen talked about how that's difficult. John Harbaugh talked about how that's difficult this week with Keaton Mitchell being inactive. So, yeah, no real like mega strong takes. Let's go over to little start some game by game. Eagles and Cowboys, Thursday Night Football. Very quick, like, let it rip takes would be Dak Prescott was balling. I think Dak Prescott was exceptional in this game. Balling so much, though, that I think he was really feeling himself. He was really feeling himself. He was ripping the ball into some tight windows that were some awesome throws. But, we talked about the Royal we have talked about the drops from CeeDee Lamb, the drop from Jake Ferguson in the end zone. But these are tough catches. Some of them need to be made. But it was Dak, really getting a little bit maybe out over his skis with his aggression levels, but he was feeling himself, man. He was chucking that thing into some tight coverage. I thought just a general 2 main takeaways for me just from watching the game before we get into like data level stuff. Let's stay here and let's do some snap count stuff. The Cowboys were much better than I expected on both sides of the ball, though I thought the offense would be pretty good. Javonte Williams is obviously the quasi workhorse for the Dallas Cowboys. I thought he looked fine is how I would classify Javonte Williams. Not amazing, not bad, just fine. Some good plays, some not so good plays, but the role for Javonte is about as good as you could ask for. All the high value touches, right? Goal line touches, passing game work, 2-minute drill, everything was his. Miles Sanders had the single worst 49-yard rush I can remember. Absolutely embarrassing to just be having a linebacker who runs a 4.6 40, like jogging alongside you, knowing he can take you down at any moment. So I'm not really concerned about Miles Sanders. And I think Jaden Blue can work his way into the mix here because of his explosion over time. But there was a quote that came out, I believe, yesterday or whenever it was about Brian Schottenheimer saying, consistency. Jaden Blue, he knows he's explosive, but he needs to be consistent. And that's obviously a big deal for rookies, is being able to do all the little things and do them consistently. So I think it's going to be, for the foreseeable future, Javonte Williams backfield on a really good offense. So it's a really, really good role for Javonte to have. Pretty much as expected, really, everywhere else. Nothing notable there. Oh, I was going to say, I talked about this a little bit last week, so I won't, on the Friday show, I won't hammer it home too much more. The Eagles are still really, really good. Undoubtedly, the Eagles are still really, really good. A.J. Dillon, though, pulled basically a Patrick Mahomes on Rashee Rice on Landon Dickerson, which is also probably part of why they traded for Tank Bigsby, because they watched A.J. Dillon kill Landon Dickerson, and they were like, okay, enough of that. We're not doing that stuff anymore. And Will Shipley got hurt on the kick return. They like Tank Bigsby for kick return. What a perfect acquisition is. Let's get this A.J. Dillon guy out of here. Let's get Tank Bigsby on kick return so Shipley doesn't have to do it. And wheels up. Seems like a good move for the Eagles. But just from the Eagles' perspective, as we saw, let's see, the A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith games not be great. They played a lot, as you see here, 55 snaps and 55 snaps and 54 snaps, 33 routes apiece for Devontae Smith. And so they ran a route on essentially every single drop back and never got the football. did the dynamic duo in the Eagles passing game. But part of this is like, and aren't you worried about the Eagles? I've been, even though they dunked on me last year and they won the Super Bowl because they're awesome. They're a really good football team. The lack of any creativity and any just get the ball. Like last night you saw it with KOC, JJ McCarthy struggling, Justin Jefferson's not really getting involved. And it's like, all right, enough. It's the second quarter. Justin Jefferson has to get the ball. Let's manufacture him a touch. Just get him the rock, right? Let's make an easy throw for our quarterback and get the ball into the hands of our best player a couple of times, just to get him in the game, get him lathered up, right? Get him feeling himself a little bit more in the game. And the Eagles don't do that. They don't do that. They don't motion. They don't do a lot. They don't throw in between the numbers unless it's a check down, right, to the running back or to Dallas Goedert. They don't do a lot creativity wise, and they're still really, really good. The talent can overcome it. They won the game. But the game was a lot closer than the expectation was. The Cowboys were expected to be really bad. I expected the Cowboys defense to be absolutely horrible and the Eagles to go name their score. And they just sort of let everybody hang around, right? You remember last year with like until they get to the Super Bowl, apparently, but they let the Carolina Panthers hang around. They let, and maybe they're just biding their time and playing it really vanilla because they know they're going to make the playoffs. I think that's reasonable, but we need to know that for our fantasy purposes, because it's certainly going to be a little bit of a rocky road with the passing game. And Saquon wasn't efficient in the running game at all. The most efficient runner in this game on both sides was actually Will Shipley. But just a, a little minor takeaway. Nothing super. I'm not even gonna, I don't think, pull up. Let's switch over to Dallas though really quick, just so you can see the snaps. So they had 61 snaps of offense, which you can see here, of course, because the offensive linemen play every single snap, as does the quarterback. But Pickens and CeeDee basically playing every single snap and running just about every single route, and Javonte Williams at 47 snaps of 61. Pretty good. Damn near 80% snap share for any running back is awesome. Those would be the main takeaways from that game. Friday night. Let's do Friday night. Chiefs and Chargers. How do you feel about Tank now? A little bit wait and see. It's possible Tank's going to need 2 injuries, or like, so here, if I were a betting man, if someone put a gun to my head and said, how do you think the Eagles thing would shake out now? I think it's very difficult for someone to change teams in season and come over and learn a new playbook and get up to speed really quickly. So I don't think Tank Bigsby is going to be like Even if Will Shipley is missing time, I don't think Tank Bigsby is going to be like some big part of the offense. He's not a particularly good passing game player. That's not why they acquired him. That is what Will Shipley is there to do. That's what he did on the opening drive of the first week. So if he carves out a role, I think it would be just a spell somebody for some carries, because I do think Tank is a good runner. Obviously, the real bet from Will Shipley and Tank Bigsby behind Saquon, because if Saquon's healthy, Saquon's the man, is if something happens to Saquon Barkley, my expectation is those two will split the backfield. I would suspect that Will Shipley gets a little bit more of that. He's been there. He was also a highly drafted player in year 2. And Tank is there to be better than A.J. Dillon, be an insurance policy at running back, and be their kick returner. So, but that's good. If you're the kick returner, that means you're going to be active on game days. You can stumble into some work. I think if something were to happen to Saquon Barkley, we now have 2 valuable guys. It's still a net negative for Tank, because what we drafted him for was, can he take the lead with the Jaguars without an injury? Now he might need 2 injuries. He certainly needs 1, but he might need 2. So general downgrade to Tank, general downgrade to Will Shipley. Both, however, still have a very clear path to being guys that we are really happy we have on our team. It's just a little bit murkier now from those 2 guys. I think the biggest winner of all of this, I understand why someone would say Tootin, is Travis Etienne. Pretty easily, for me, is the winner there. How bad is the Eagles secondary from former DB perspective? Not as good as it has been. Not as good as it has been. They were picking on the corners. Now, George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb are pretty fucking good. So it's definitely not an indictment on the Eagles defensive backs, but not as good. I think that was a small sneaky concern, and a small sneaky if you drafted Jalen Hurts. Specifically Jalen Hurts, but Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas got it right. The pass game guys. If you drafted those guys, part of the potential for more passing, the cleanest path to more passing is a downgrade to the Eagles defense. Obviously, it helps when Jalen Carter spits on a man before the game starts and he's not playing. But I think the defensive backs, the corners specifically, are a little bit sketchier. They're talented, but are they going to is the pass defense going to be quite as locked down if they don't get pressure? I don't think so. There was a lot of opportunity for the Cowboys in that game. A bunch of penalties, right? You saw George Pickens drawing penalties. You saw CeeDee Lamb drawing penalties. You saw shot plays down the field from Dak Prescott. You saw big plays that happened, and you saw big plays that should have happened from drops. I think there's potential for oppositions against the Eagles passing game. And I do think better days are ahead for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. A.J. Brown did also himself have a, I got receivers here. Do we got, let's just sort by the Eagles and look super quickly at the Eagles. So it is funny. Hold on. I also want to pull up, let's go over here really quickly, because when I mentioned the air yardage stuff for Jackson Smith and Jigba at 90%. There was 10 wide receivers with an air yard share greater than 50% in week 1. These guys. All right. So Zay Flowers at 52, Jamar Chase at 50, call it 52, 53, Ricky Pearsall at 53, Brian Thomas at 53. Hold on one second. CeeDee Lamb at 55, Garrett Wilson at 55, Justin Jefferson at 59. There's 11 because JJ got there last night as well. Skip one. Malik Neighbors at 70, and obviously JSN at 90% of team air yards. Third in the league in percentage of team air yards, Calvin Austin, brother, for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He operated as the wide receiver too. However, it's a little bit misleading because 65% of team air yards was still only 84 air yards. Same thing for Justin Jefferson. 60% of the Vikings air yards were only 69 air yards. That's a nice number, but it's not a very nice number of air yards. So, kind of same thing with Garrett Wilson. They weren't exactly chucking the ball down the field a ton. Whereas you see here, 55% of the Cowboys air yards was 182. Right? 182 air yards for CeeDee Lamb. He's doubling up these guys in air yards. So the Cowboys passing attack operated at a very different level of aggression down the field than these other teams did. And speaking of not aggressive, the other LOL guy in the above 50% of team air yards was Jahan Dotson of the Philadelphia Eagles, but it was 48 air yards. 48 air yards was more than half of the team's air yards. That means Jalen Hurts did not throw the ball in the air for more than 100 yards in that game. I know that the Cowboys were playing a very vanilla 2 high shell defense, taking away big plays, but that's not great. that's certainly not ideal for the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay. Just making sure that I didn't miss any good comments. Didn't they both come back from injury? Do you think they were out there more for decoys? This is fair for AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. They were banged up in camp, and maybe they were not fully up to speed. They were fine running, didn't seem to say I have anything wrong, but maybe they wanted to avoid contact. I think it's possible. What I tried, this is just I think that's a completely reasonable take, and I would never tell anyone not to factor in potential of a guy being banged up into their process. How I do it though, because I can't possibly know all the different, this guy's not 100, this guy's operating at 75%, and this guy's operating 85, and this guy's 100, and this guy's like 50, but he's gutting it out. If you play, I'm just going to judge you as if I'm going to judge everyone who plays the same. Unless there's something we truly know, right? The guy's dragging his leg around the field or whatever, something like that. If there's something we truly know, and the coaches have told us, the players have told us, whatever, then we can maybe discount it a little bit. But they were not on the injury report, and they were full go. They played all the snaps. I'm just going to judge them as if they were fully healthy, though I understand that perspective. That's just kind of how I tend to think about it. All right. We gotta get moving. 1 game out of 16. We'll rapid fire a little bit just with some of the key note takeaways from each game. Let me get my timestamps going here. All right. Two major takeaways from this week. I hear you, Kevin. It was if you didn't have a certain subset of wide receivers, particularly maybe a guy on or two on this Los Angeles Chargers team. Shout out Quentin Johnston, 65 offensive snaps for the Chargers. Ladd led the team in the wide receiver room with 55 snaps, but QJ, a full-time player, right alongside Ladd. Monster workload for Amarian Hampton from a snap perspective. So better days ahead. And Najee will probably continue to work his way into more of a role, but I don't think you should be concerned about Amarian Hampton personally. The role was awesome. Keenan Allen, 40 snaps out of 65, 34 routes out of 43. So he was running a good majority of the routes. Keandre Lambert-Smith mixed in for 7, and Trey Harris mixed in for 5. Hilariously, the second most efficient tight end on the week was Tyler Conklin. Let me go to tight end over here real quick. If we look at yards per route run amongst tight ends, Brock Bowers at 3.96. Tyler Conklin. It was, if you were wearing a Chargers jersey, catching passes at least, not so much on the ground. If you were running routes for the Los Angeles Chargers, even if your name was Tyler Conklin, even if your name was Quentin Johnston, if Trey Harris caught a pass, for Christ's sake, if you were out there in the Chargers passing game, it was awesome for you. They were outstanding, and that was one of my big takeaways. Is I don't expect they're going to be this pass heavy all the time, but they were extremely pass heavy in this game. The Chiefs have a very good run defense, so I think it was wise. And Justin Herbert was balling. Greg Roman was in his bag as an offensive coordinator. Still don't really trust the Quentin Johnston hands. He had a drop, and he still looks like QJ, but he looks a lot better. And I think from a fan, the role is awesome for Quentin Johnston. So just really wheels up on the Chargers, I think. I forgot about this. If your name was Tyler Conklin, Rich Eisen also called you Will Disley, like a yes, he did. That was funny. But all good things, honestly, for the Chargers. Really, really bullish. If you have your Chargers, probably start them, including Amarian Hampton. I think that they're going to absolutely run the football more in future weeks. I don't know. Do we know who they play this week? Pausing, filibustering. Oh, Monday Night Football against the Raiders. Yeah, so this is a better spot. This is a better spot for Amari and Hampton. It's a good spot all around for the Chargers, but excited. Definitely very excited about the Chargers. Not so excited about the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, devastating injury to Xavier Worthy. We'll see what happens with him. I'm not personally super hopeful, but I'm no doctor, so who am I to talk about when he's going to be back or whatever? I think we just wait and see until they tell us, what's going on with him. But it doesn't seem good, and as many targets as the let's look at that real quick. As many targets as Hollywood Brown got, he ran all the routes. He had 14 targets. It wasn't very good. Now, the volume is nice. It's certainly not a bad thing to have a wide receiver who gets 14 targets, but a wide receiver who turns them into 10 for 99 and still not a very efficient day from Hollywood is a little bit concerning, though obviously for the next few weeks, Hollywood is a great guy to have on your team. Tyquan Thornton operated as the wide receiver too, alongside Juju, right? Him and Juju were the next guys up. No one else really played. So as Daniel says, rice bags will be huge in week 7 when Rashid gets back. And if our guy, Jalen Royals can get back out there, I think Jalen Royals can carve out a role in the short term without Rashid, without Xavier Worthy, that could potentially, help springboard him into something down the stretch when Rashid is back. I have no idea if Jalen Royals is even close to being back health-wise. I don't know. And maybe he's a lost cause this year. But there's opportunity here because even though, Hollywood's getting jammed with targets, no one here was very good. And the offensive line was not very good. I have some very serious concerns about the Chiefs' offense overall. I think Mahomes is going to be able to, do Mahomes things to get them to a reasonable enough offense, because that's what Mahomes did in this game, and that's what Mahomes has done forever. But general timeshare, 31 snaps for Isaiah Pacheco, 23 for Kareem Hunt is not what we wanted to see. Maybe we get some more Brashard Smith. I know he's listed as a running back here. He operates as sort of a weapon, right, for the Kansas City Chiefs, which is good. Maybe we get some more Brashard Smith, hopefully some more Jalen Royals, and Rashid get back. Please come back, because the Chiefs really need you. I clicked some Isaiah Pacheco, in the 7th round or whatever it was, as our whole chaperone idea of can the Isaiah Pachecos of the world, the Tyrone Tracy's of the world, help get me some early season points until my zero running back to the Bashal Tutons of the world come through. Well, no, he can't. No, Isaiah Pacheco could not help us there. But hopefully better days ahead in a month and a half for the Kansas City Chiefs. But this schedule is rough. I don't know if you guys have seen the Chiefs' schedule. So obviously just lost to the Chargers. Eagles this week. That's not going to be a particularly easy game, of course. Giants, okay, let's concede and give them a win against the Giants, right? The Giants stink. Russ was terrible. We'll talk about that. Baltimore Ravens. Do you feel very comfortable giving this Chiefs team a win over the Ravens? Because I don't. The Jags, I think the Chiefs will be favored. Maybe. We'll see. The Lions didn't look good there, but I'm not ready to give the Chiefs a win over them. The Raiders just beat the Patriots. Commanders are good. Bills are good. Broncos are good. This can get scary fast for the Chiefs. They generally tend to win some games that we don't expect that they're going to win, but they better. We're going to be staring down the barrel at missing the playoffs here for the Kansas City Chiefs if they don't turn this thing around quick, fast, and in a hurry. Giants game was going to be a trap game, but not if they're losing going into it. Yeah, if they're, if they come off the game, they beat the Chargers and they beat the Eagles in week 2 right there, riding high, and then they go play the Giants and lay an egg. Would not be shocking, but they're probably going to be 0-2 heading into that Giants game. So those poor Giants. Though the Giants pass rush, I think, is still good. The Giants defense needs to learn how to tackle, is my takeaway from the Giants, but I think that they're pretty good on defense. All right, let's get into some Sunday kind of love, some Sunday kind of football. Let's go to the Cardinals and the Saints next up on the list here. An interesting game of two, honestly, woeful offenses. The Saints ran a lot of plays. We'll start with the Saints side. The 75 plays. You've noticed on a lot of these, 75 plays has not been the norm for these offenses. But it wasn't a particularly efficient day for old Spencer Rattler and Alvin Kamara and Kellen Moore's New Orleans Saints. If we look quickly just at a basic box score, you see 46 pass attempts for 214 yards. Generally not great if you barely get over 200 yards and almost 50 pass attempts. They ran the ball all right. 22 carries for 107 yards. Granted, a good chunk of the efficiency came from Rattler scrambles, but that's okay. I thought Kendre Miller looks pretty good. Devin Neal looked okay in his couple carries. I thought Kellen Moore was doing all right in the run game, but of course they were losing. It was 17-10 at halftime and 20-10 heading into the fourth quarter. The Saints had a drive to close the game with an opportunity to win. They almost did score or not win, tie or win. They could have kicked a PAT or gone for 2. They had every chance. They were right in this game. As a -5.5 Arizona Cardinals better, I was not feeling very good about that. Just from an overall volume perspective, as you see here, Juwan Johnson, 11 targets. Chris Olave, 13 targets. Rashid Shaheed, 9 targets. Rashid Shaheed's receiving prop was 2.5 catches. What are we doing, guys? Come on, figure it out. In this game, let's go back over to PFF. Brandon Cooks operated as the wide receiver 3, Devon Vele as the wide receiver 4. As I've mentioned, my expectation is that Olave and Shaheed. Olave got hurt 2 different times and came back 2 different times in this game. It was good for him for coming back, but geez, man, this guy's going to have another rough season with Spencer Rattler throwing more hospital balls. Derek Carr on the couch doing a really good job, by the way, in his analyst or whatever we want to call it debut for Derek Carr. But my take is they traded for Devon Vele to come be like a big slot for them, and I think he will eventually take this from Brandon Cooks, and part of that is because if we click over to the receiving, Brandon Cooks not exactly doing much. The lowest graded receiver on the Saints, he played 44 snaps, drew 3 targets. I think it's pretty much just over for Brandon Cooks. But if you drafted Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Juwan Johnson, I think you're feeling generally pretty good. They're not going to run 75 plays. They're not going to throw 46 passes every week. But I do think we should probably be expecting them to throw more passes, generally speaking, than the average team does, given the fact that they're probably going to be losing. The small concern that I have is actually on the side of the Cardinals. If we look at this box score, if I'm going to call out Spencer Rattler and the Saints for being very inefficient from a passing game perspective, we should also look at Kyler Murray, 21 of 29. Okay, cool. Sacked 5 times by the fucking Saints. Pardon my French. 5 sacks against the Saints. Not ideal. Only 163 yards. He scrambled a little bit, 38 yards. Okay. They ran the ball well, but it was generally one long Trey Benson run, 150. Trey Benson, 7 carries for 17 yards outside of his 52-yard run. James Conner, 12 carries for 39 yards. Not very good. I have monster Trey McBride bags. And from an overall receiving perspective, no, let's just do from an overall receiving perspective, right? 22% of his routes he was targeted on. That's good. That's up here with the high end guys. From if you're an EPA guy, from an EPA perspective, it was very, very good. He was doing Trey McBride things, third in the NFL in yards after catch amongst all of the tight ends. This is not ideal though. 3-yard ADOT, 3-yard ADOT, but this is ideal, right? Second highest, tied for the second highest target share amongst all tight ends. I think generally speaking, it was very good for Trey McBride, but the efficiency was not very good. And that is my overall concern. My takeaway from this game, Saints are kind of what we thought. But over the summer, you probably heard me talk about the Cardinals offensively are trying to play like a basketball team nowadays who won't shoot 3-pointers. You just can't win modern basketball games when there's a 3-point line and your opponents are taking 53s, right? You play the Boston Celtics and the Boston Celtics shoot 53-pointers and you shoot 0. Even if they don't make many, how do you beat them? Because they get 3 points they get 50% more points, right? That's what the Cardinals are doing with no downfield passing. They hit Marv for one big play down the field, long of, where is the long of 45. They hit a nice deep shot to Marv. That was fun. Outside of that, they have no explosion in their offense, the Arizona Cardinals. I'm not sure where like the juice is coming from in this offense. And people are talking about trading for Tyreek in the chat. I don't think that anyone can probably be trading for Tyreek. Some more domestic violence. He obviously just went through a divorce, and his ex or whatever is going on accused him of a lot of bad things. Shocker that Tyreek Hill is accused of more bad things. I'm not sure that anybody's going to be trading for Tyreek Hill, and he wasn't particularly good in the week 1 game for the Dolphins. He's not exactly part of the solution. He might be part of the problem. Daniel says Marv looked good. I agree. I think Marv and Trey McBride looked awesome. I thought Marv genuinely played well, and I thought Trey McBride looked exactly like what Trey McBride looks like. They were awesome, but they're sort of playing. They're playing with like a running vet, like a weighted vest on. It's like it's so hard for them to do what they have to do because there's nothing around them. Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, Zay Jones, Tip Raymond. Like, there's nothing around those two guys. James Conner ain't explosive. Trey Benson, kinda. He had the big run, right? But, like, Kyler's the fastest guy on the team, and he's the quarterback, and he's not as fast as he once was. I just think there's systemic concerns for the Arizona Cardinals. I think Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison are going to have monster target shares, and they're going to have good seasons. But it might be a little more volume based than efficiency based for these two guys, which is, it is what it is, but it's not ideal. All right. Giants, Commanders. Gotta love getting to game 4 an hour in. We are so freaking back. We are so back. NFL season when we're getting 4 games in an hour. All right. Let's move over to offense. Obviously, Jaden Daniels playing the most amount of snaps. Terry McLaurin. I was concerned about Terry McLaurin's role. What I should have been concerned with is the new Giants corner. Oh my God. The guy who was covering Terry McLaurin locked him up. So it wasn't the role. I was like, man, Terry hasn't been at practice for a while. I know he's in shape and stuff, but like, are they going to run him out for like an absolute full-time role? Yep. Yep. Yes, they did. They ran Terry McLaurin out for a full-time role, but he was not particularly effective in this game because he was locked up. So maybe that was should have been more of the concern. I don't even know what his final counting stats were. 2 for 27. Woof for Terry McLaurin. I thought the Giants defense played well. I thought the Commanders offense was okay. We talked about Bill, definitely exciting. And, so as you see here, as I was talking about, 23 total snaps for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt out of 70. In Austin Eckler, 33. And down here, Jeremy McNichols, 13. Luke McCaffrey, halfback? But anyway, In the first half, it really was the Austin Eckler show. We got a little more Bill in the second half, and then a lot more Bill in the fourth quarter, and that's where he really started to shine. And I think that's a good thing. I'm just trying to give the appropriate context. That, like, when we see the box score, it's easy to be like, oh my God, Bill is RB1 for the Commanders. And it's like, he might get there because he played well. And I think if you continue to play well, that's how you get on the field more. But he did not operate as such in this game. It was actually Austin Eckler. So, or just go to the if you're extra. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I see you, Rob. We'll get to the questions. Let's do this game super quick. No major takes, honestly, outside of the Bills stuff for the Commanders. I thought Debo looked awesome. Debo put up a nice box score, 7 for 77 in the passing game, plus a 19-yard rushing touchdown. Obviously, here he graded out pretty well. 10 targets, 10 of 29 targets from the Commanders for Debo. I don't think that's going to happen every week because of the Terry McLaurin stuff. As we mentioned, just 4 targets for Terry McLaurin. But the Debo is fat, and LOL, you can't draft him in the 7th round. I don't think that is going to be the case. On the Giants side, the volume was as expected for Malik Neighbors, as we talked about over here from an air yards perspective and target share perspective and all that kind of stuff. Second in the NFL in air yards share was Malik Neighbors. And I think he's up there. So like top, what is that? 8 from a target share perspective. I think he tied for the lead in red zone targets. Malik Neighbors, Pop Douglas, who we'll get to, had a really funny stat line, Hollywood Brown, and Christian McCaffrey, top in red zone targets, 1 end zone target for Malik Neighbors. However, my takeaway is not even really about the data from this one. Where am I at here? Russ, not good. Not good. Now, no Andrew Thomas. He was under pressure. He was running a lot for sure. Russ ended with 48 for 44 rushing. So the offensive line was bad. So I don't want to put this all on Russ. The offensive line was very bad. You see that in the let's go to rushing real quick, because I think you'll see a really good grade. Yeah. So Tyrone Tracy, actually, it looks bad. 10 for 24, right? That's not good. It's not good. But he actually graded out really well. And he had 24 yards. 21 of them came after contact. He forced a missed tackle. Like, he wasn't as bad as it seems from his actual performance. The offensive line was really bad. So it's only fair that I say the same thing about Russell Wilson, right? That the offensive line was really bad. He was scrambling around. However, it was bad. It was bad. I don't have much to say. As Bree says, free Neighbors, unleash Dart. I'm ready to see Dart. Russ, they've already said Russ is going to start this week in week 2, but I'm done. I'm done with the Russ thing. Whatever. Not much else to add here amongst was it Deonte Banks or hold on. This fella, Paulson Adebo, I believe, was he covering? Yeah, because Banks didn't play much. I'm pretty sure it was Adebo. Yeah, it was Paulson Adebo that did a good job on Terry. I know the grade isn't that good, but anyway, Terry got locked down a little bit there. Enough of the defensive takes though. Let's hold on. I haven't looked at like Russ. See, like 17 of 37 for 168 yards. He did have one big time throw, so good for him. Shout out to him. And to Bree says Tracy's my highest on running back. I pray you're right about him. I'm not sitting here trying to pound the table that Tyrone Tracy is going to be good, but Andrew Thomas, left tackle for the New York Giants, did miss this game. He's a big deal. He'll be back. we'll see. I'm not pounding the table for Tyrone Tracy, but I do think that like just the box score, these are the kinds of things, right? Like we were talking about with Bill. Bill played really well, but also it looks like he had a bigger role than he did. We'll talk about David Montgomery and stuff later. Sometimes the box score it can just be a little bit deceiving. And the box score was just a little bit deceiving for Tyrone Tracy. Doesn't mean that it won't be deceiving again next week. It doesn't mean that it's going to turn around. It doesn't mean that Cam Scatterby won't take more of the role. I don't know, but just from this week, what happened, it wasn't Tyrone Tracy. It wasn't his fault, is I guess what I'm saying. He wasn't like incredible, but it also wasn't really his fault that all this happened. And so it wasn't entirely Russ's fault, but I'm just done. I'm just so done with the Russell Wilson experiment. All right, next game. Oh God. So speaking of box scores that can be misleading, Aaron Rodgers. So let's flip over here. Aaron Rodgers came after the game, and they win, and he throws 4 touchdowns. Shout out to him, 4 touchdowns, and said something about like, well, there's a bunch of people in the Jets building that don't think I can play anymore, and it's nice to show them that they're wrong or whatever. And it was like, well, I knew you threw 4 touchdowns, and that's great. He wasn't that good. 34 dropbacks, 244 yards. The Steelers, hold on, let me click over to this so you can see the super quick team box score. This is where scoring 34 points seems like, oh my God, what a shootout. This is just insane back and forth. The Steelers had 271 yards of total offense. That's not great. That's not impressive. Now, they did only run 54 plays, but again, they play so slow. They weren't that efficient on offense. They hit some touchdowns on some nice plays. They were outgained by 123 yards by the Jets. They were outplayed by the Jets. I just, outplayed on third down. I don't really know how they won this game. Well, a 60-yard Chris Boswell field goal will, 4 TDs, and he needed a fumble on the kickoff and a 60-yard field goal to win. I just think if you're a Steelers fan, this is a great start. You're excited. Rodgers was fine. The offense was fine, but the offense wasn't great. And I think that's one of those box score is telling something a little bit different than actually what happened on the field. And I think you could watch the game and say, I don't think that's just a nerdy, let's look at the data stuff. I think you could have watched the game and had that takeaway as well. But there are still certainly some positives to come here. Jaylen Warren caught a touchdown. Ben Skoranek caught a touchdown on his one target, and Jonnu Smith and Calvin Austin. We talked about Calvin Austin. One thing that I do think is largely relevant was, DK Metcalf played all the snaps. Calvin Austin operated as the very, very clear wide receiver 2. Roman Wilson was the wide receiver 3 at just 10 snaps. They did play their tight ends a lot. Jonnu, 37 of 56 snaps, and Pat Freiermuth, 28 of 56 snaps. So it was DK Metcalf, the tight ends, and Calvin Austin, plus the running backs. Obviously, Darnell Washington also right here. So if you thought they were going to play a bunch of tight ends, Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers, you were correct. They're playing a bunch of tight ends. And it's really difficult to be super efficient as a passing offense playing a bunch of these tight ends with Calvin Austin and DK Metcalf as your best weapons. So overall, net positive, I think, for the Steelers. But the real net positive for me, even though it was a loss, like I'm mostly talking about fantasy football here, right? Fantasy football, sports betting. We're trying to get ahead of those types of things. I'm not a Jets fan, so and I'm not a Steelers fan. I don't give a shit who won this game. The thing I was most bullish about was the Jets offense. The Jets offense operated extremely efficiently. We saw how good Breece Hall was earlier when we were looking at the running back metrics. Breece Hall was one of the best running backs of the week. He did play the most snaps amongst the Jets backfield, 20 for Braylon Allen, 37 for Breece Hall, just 8 for Isaiah Davis. So we have 3 backs we love. I think you have 2 backs you love, Aaron Glenn. I think that Breece Hall, I think it was also a little bit of like hot handish, as you see with some of the grades on your screen. Breece Hall was awesome. Breece Hall is good. He's good at football. Spoiler. And as we mentioned, I think playing alongside Justin Fields is really good for Breece. We talked earlier. You can go back to the beginning where we talked about the wide receiver stuff. Garrett Wilson, wheels up for Garrett Wilson. However, where it's maybe not so wheels up is everyone else. Let's look at the targets. Garrett Wilson, 8. Next best receiver from a target perspective, despite running all the routes. Both Garrett Wilson and Josh Reynolds had 100% route participation. There were 26 passing plays and 26 routes for both of them. Josh Reynolds ran every route and saw a whopping 3 targets. I'm getting the wide receiver 2 for this team in the last round. How could he be going here? I think you just saw it. He got one more target than Tyler Johnson, one more target than Jeremy Ruckert. It was a little bit concerning. Mason Taylor, we thought, would step in to, a complete full-time role. He did, but he didn't draw the targets. He wasn't drawing the targets. Jeremy Ruckert with one more target than him. Tyler Johnson with one more target than him. Probably better days ahead for Mason Taylor, but it does seem like a one-man band. Well, Fields, Breece, Braylon, kind of as we expected. Sometimes it's nice. Sometimes it's easy. Fields, Breece, Braylon, Garrett Wilson. X everybody else out. Move on. All right. What game were we just doing? Perfect. Somebody just mentioned Josh Downs. That is not what we try to do there. Offense. Somebody just mentioned Josh Downs. So let's do let's do the Dolphins. We talked about it last night on the show with myself and Rob. If you missed it, you can go check that out after we're done here. It's also up on the pod feed, et cetera, et cetera. 18th round Reynolds is in a wide receiver 2 volume click. It was a hope to scam 5 TDs from our last round pick. Yeah, well, good luck. You got to get targets to scam 5 touchdowns. Also, I would rather try to find a better pick than praying for 5 touchdowns. I can pray for 5 touchdowns from anyone. That's why we don't draft those kinds of guys. We go hunting for Kayshon Boutte, who we'll talk about. Right, try to find the breakout. You can get 5 touchdowns and an actual breakout from a guy in the last round. But the Dolphins, 47. It was so bad. I don't have much to say about the Dolphins that kind of hasn't already been said. Tua was awful. The offensive line was awful. The receivers were awful. Zach Wilson came in and got about every wide receiver that was out there killed, throwing hospital ball after hospital ball. From the pass game perspective, Tyreek led in targets, but Malik Washington led in routes, 26 routes for Malik Washington, also 26 routes for Devon Achane. The Ollie Gordon workload was basically non-existent. Achane playing a lot. So if the Dolphins can turn this thing around, which that's not my belief, I don't think that's going to happen. It was nice to see Malik as a full-time player. It was nice to see Devon Achane as a workhorse running back on this team. But, I don't know, man. I don't have much hope. The Colts, this is not the 85 Bears. The Colts are not the Ravens. The Colts are not some awesome football team. I didn't think Daniel Jones played that well. We can switch over there. I thought he was okay. Graded out pretty solid, but the passing was just okay. The running was definitely good. But I just thought he was just getting some layups from the Dolphins. And if you want to sort of buy low on Denver and sell high on the Colts, the Broncos play the Colts next week. And I think we might be in for a bloodbath with that Broncos defense against this, because also if we look at rushing, Jonathan Taylor was not good. And the Colts run game was not good. JT wasn't good himself. 18 carries for 71 yards, got dinged up in the fourth quarter, but was fine. But it was 23-0. I know because I I locked Jonathan Taylor in DFS, and watching friggin' Daniel Jones get 2 1-yard rushing touchdowns. JT gets stuffed every time. And then when they're driving again, JT gets dinged up, and DJ Giddens takes that drive because the game was 23-0 in the fourth quarter. But are you concerned about Jonathan Taylor? Not right now. 41 of his yards after contact. I thought he could have done a little bit more. JT could have, but we'll see how he looks moving forward. Probably the real story amongst a couple real stories amongst the passing game of the Indianapolis Colts. Tyler Warren was awesome. Tyler Warren balled out, 7 for 76, 9 targets of 29 Daniel Jones pass attempts. The kind of preseason usage rolled into week 1. Awesome usage for Tyler Warren. Wheels up for him if you have him on your teams, for sure. As we saw with some of the, from a target share perspective, tied with Trey McBride for second. Tyler Warren was, from just like a yardage perspective, he was up there. From let's see, I think he wasn't as good EPA wise, but targets per route, he led all NFL tight ends, shockingly tied with Noah Fant in targets per route run. 36% of his routes he was targeted on, 3.04 yards per route run, near the top of the league. Now, it's the Dolphins. Tougher matchups are ahead for Tyler Warren, but it doesn't get much better of a start than Tyler Warren had there. So sure, he didn't get in the end zone, and so the fantasy production just looks okay unless you're in tight end premium on FFPC, but overall really, really good. The flip side of that, Michael Pittman had 8 targets, went 6 for 80 and 1. Nice performance from Michael Pittman in this game. Ran all the routes, as you see here, was running basically all the routes. But if those two are getting all the work and running all the routes, you know who wasn't? Mr. Josh Downs. And I'm not sure what, outside of, right, the Colts are just losing in these games. I'm not sure how Josh Downs works his way into a super fantasy friendly role. I'm not sure. So as you see here, they played 73 snaps of offense and they had 34 pass attempts. Josh Downs, right? This is how many times they had a pass play. 34 pass attempts. Michael Pittman ran around on 30 of them. Tyler Warren ran around on 25. Alec Pierce ran around on 28. Jonathan Taylor ran around on 24. Josh Downs ran around on 17. That's half for those that struggle with math. That is only half of the routes Josh Downs ran. They're gonna have to run more. Now, this was a game that didn't necessarily require their slot receiver, of course. And I think Josh Downs is very good at football. But it's not just about being very good at football. We need you to get on the field. And he's 5'9", 170 pounds. If they're not in a game that requires them to get in 11 personnel and sling it around a lot more, I think it's going to be tricky, like to start Josh Downs in a fantasy league or something like that. So that's a little bit concerning. DJ Giddens, I will just add, was very clearly the backup there. Let's do Patriots and Raiders here. I mentioned during the Ashton Genty, we talked a little bit about Ashton Genty and the Patriots being a pass funnel. I think I mentioned one of my big takeaways. Brock Bowers is very good at football. Is still a take. Brock Bowers, of course. Let's look at those routes real quick, because that is definitely a takeaway. Brock Bowers ran 26 of 40 routes. Michael Mayer ran 16 of 40 routes. Trey Tucker operated very clearly ahead of Jack Besh, right? But he also operated ahead of Dante Thornton, which is a little bit annoying. Jacoby Myers out of the slot. Trey Tucker ran the most routes and played the most snaps amongst all these guys. Just really got to make sure Trey Tucker's out there for every snap. We can't put Brock Bowers out there. Pete Carroll, man, Chip Kelly, man, these guys. are just something else. But I assume Dante Thornton, again, better days ahead. Brock Bowers is so good that it absolutely did not matter, as we showed here. Almost 4 yards per route run, targeted on 31% of his routes. Brock Bowers is just fine. Don't worry about that guy. But on the Patriots side, Kayshon Boutte ran the most routes, played the most snaps, and had a really nice game, 6 for 101. And I'm very excited for Kayshon Boutte. We've had a lot of Kayshon Boutte conversation in the Discord over the course of the last 2 days. So I don't want to. My goal is not to dispel the optimism and the hope. I have optimism. I have hope. I'm excited for Kayshon Boutte. I think he's a good pickup in all formats, dynasty, redraft, whatever. If you have best ball shares, I think you should be very excited for Kayshon Boutte. However, I think it's also important to remember that they threw the ball 46 times in this game. The New England Patriots did. They were, quite frankly, terrible on offense. Drake May threw for 287 yards. I guess that's okay. They kept running Ramondre, 7 carries for 15 yards, right into the back of his offensive lineman. Stephon Diggs looked like kind of a veteran, move the chains kind of guy, not particularly explosive. I'm a little more optimistic, I think, than the world is about Stephon Diggs. I'm not burying him 6 feet under. Being a little bit older guy, first game back from an ACL tear, I'm willing to give him some time, but not forever. Not willing to give him forever, that's for sure. Hunter Henry was fine. Travion Henderson's role was disappointing, but he did get a lot of work in the snaps that he played. Let's go to receiving really quickly. As you see here, Kayshon Boutte 8, tied for the team lead with 8 targets. The problem, though, is that as cool as that is, right? It's and it is very, very cool that Kayshon Boutte had an awesome game. It wasn't like let's do amongst 25 routes because he should be up here a little bit. It wasn't like some phenomenal performance. As you see here, 6 for 103, and 8. So he had an 18% target share, tied with Hunter Henry. He had 3 yards after the catch. He was a bit of a downfield guy. 12.5 ADOT is much higher than you see on a lot of these guys. Now, he was great, but 18%, 18% of his routes he was targeted on, and he was solidly efficient. But it didn't go, holy shit, this is a superstar. It did go, he might be the best guy here, and I want him on my teams. 100% want this dude on my teams. But I think it's really easy to go, look at this. Kayshon Boutte season, it's over. Slam dunk, run to the podium, wide receiver 1, whatever. And I just want to make sure, they threw the ball 50 times, and let's see. I'm worried about the Patriots offense. So even as good as he was, there's concerns here. The Raiders defense is bad. The Raiders defense is not good. So if they're struggling against that Raiders defense, that's not awesome to me. They got to stop the Ramondre thing. There's the final takeaway. Enough of the Ramondre stuff. He can play because, of course, you have to play all your guys. But come on, man. This is ridiculous. Okay. Patriots. Let's probably pick up the pace a little bit here. We are got a lot of games to go. Jacksonville. We talked a lot about the backfield here. So let's just do some of the receiving stuff. Actually, let's go over to the snaps so I can show the running back snaps. So 66 snaps of offense, 40 for Travis Etienne, 14 for Tank Bigsby, 9 for LeQuint Allen, 4 for Bashal Tutin. So as I said, when we're talking about this Jaguars backfield, it is not so clear that this is all their confidence in Bashal Tutin, why they got rid of Tank Bigsby. I don't think that's fair to say. I think it's possible, but I don't think it's fair to say that they are going to just see, Tutin is the new Bucky. Jesus Christ. Been thinking about these guys too much, apparently. Everything else to me, from a Jaguars perspective, was like pretty much as expected. Brian Thomas Jr. runs all the routes. Brenton Strange, pretty much, operating mostly a little bit more Johnny Munt maybe than we had hoped. But De'Ami Brown is wide receiver 2 on the outside. Travis Hunter, I will say, I got to get over to passing to show. Not passing, receiving. You can see we haven't talked a lot about slot. Travis Hunter ran 27 routes, 20 of them were in the slot. So Travis Hunter is, for all intents and purposes, the Jacksonville Jaguars slot receiver. His average depth of target was not particularly great. 7.3, it was okay, but they took one. Trevor Lawrence was actually picked off on the play that I think might have been a Travis Hunter touchdown. if he gets it like 6 inches further, that's what she said. If there's just 6 inches more, it would have been a much better experience for everyone involved. But close to a Travis Hunter bomb touchdown, and I think also better days ahead here. Trevor Lawrence wasn't awesome. You see the Brian Thomas Jr. like 7 targets, 1 catch for 11 yards. He saved his day with a rushing touchdown. But I think in terms of role, right, De'Ami's kind of a high upside downfield flyer. That's why, like, you didn't either draft Josh Reynolds. You could have just drafted De'Ami Brown. At least this guy's like in a little bit more friendly offense, in a more voluminous passing offense with maybe more talent, whatever. So that's how it looks over here. Carolina side. I was hoping for a little bit more Jatavian Sanders. Xavier Legette. I don't know, man. We're going to need to see something better. It was pretty bad. For the Carolina Panthers. I think one of the things when Coker got ruled out, when they traded Adam Thielen, that we, myself included, as we piled into this offense, into Xavier Legette, into Jatavian Sanders and stuff, was not thinking about the fact that just like they might just suck. Like if Xavier Legette isn't good, Hunter Renfrow is not good anymore. If T-Mac's not like a superstar, this offense might not be very good, and it was not very good. Bryce Young was up and down. He did run a decent amount. Bryce Young did in this game, but I'm not super bullish on the Carolina Panthers. And honestly, Trevor Lawrence wasn't exceptional as a passer in this game. He was quite bad, actually. So kind of wait and see a little bit on these two teams. We did that one. Oh, baby. We finally buried the lead. We got to the game of the week, the game I'm most excited to talk about here. And it is, of course, the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals. First of all, the Cleveland Browns should have won this game. No doubt. But it is absolutely, unequivocally, no arguments from anyone, Harold Fannin season. It's Harold Fannin season. We're all just along for the ride. Harold Fannin, rookie tight end. I got many things wrong, and some of my guys were inactive in week 1, and it didn't go perfect for every take from over the summer. But Harold Fannin is the man, and I feel so much joy thinking about frankly the top of this entire list. If we look, 41 pass attempts for the Cleveland Browns. Harold Fannin led the team with 9 targets. He ran 31 routes and played on 36 passing downs. He is good. He dropped 1 pass that was rough. It was a nice little like 15 to 20 yard gainer that he would have had, but still over 2 yards per route run, moved all over the formation. He had an 86% route percentage. He played in the slot. He played out wide. He played in line. Everything that the Browns told us from over the summer, this guy's awesome. We're going to use him all over the field. He's going to play a lot. He's basically a starter, was true. So if you were concerned about, he's the tight end 2 behind David Njoku. No, he's not. He's a starter. He's a weapon on this offense. And that's what he did. And he was awesome in that role. Now, Fannin is going to bring us to the promised land. Travis, would you start Fannin over Waddle? Who do the Dolphins play? I don't know who the Dolphins play in week 2. Let's see. Let's see. Filibuster. Where's my New England? So what I will say is for week 2, I am tempering my expectations a little bit. Miami, as you see here, plays New England. I think it's an interesting spot for Jalen Waddle. And in half PPR, it is a little bit concerning because Harold Fannin plays on the road at Baltimore. Now I know Baltimore just got carved up by Josh Allen in the second half, but that's Josh Allen. I'm excited for Flacco. I'm being caught. Like the Bengals were an awesome spot for our Fannin, our Sampson, our everything. I'll have to think about that one, Travis. I do think it's close, and that's crazy, but I do think it is close. Let's see here. Let's go back to PFF. But the other notable thing alongside Harold Fannin, shout out Warehouse, 21 Harold Fannins in the main event. That's amazing. First of all, shout out to you, how rich. But one Njoku team, 21 Fannins. We're Harold Fannin slappies around here. What a fun time that was. He got the first target of the game, by the way, for the Browns. We got the excitement going early, But Dylan Sampson also a focal part of the passing game. The Browns' running attack could not get going. So that is a concern. That's very much a concern this week for Dylan Sampson. Aren't you worried about Quinshon Judkins? Not yet. I think the long-term trajectory for me, for the Browns, is, of course, Fannin continues this thing, and Njoku's going to be gone next year. If you don't have Fannin in your dynasty leagues, I think you should go get him. It might be too late. The genie might be out of the bottle, but if it's not too late, go get him. And Njoku be gone next year. But I think the long-term plan in the backfield is Sampson and Judkins, and Ford is a non-issue. That's my take. So I'm still excited for Dylan Sampson, and they basically just said, let's build this damn thing out of a few different guys. And Dylan Sampson and Harold Fannin were one of them, as you see at the top of your screen. Fannin 9 targets, Sampson 8 targets, Cedric Tillman 8 targets, and he got the touchdown. Jerry Jeudy also 8 targets. On the Bengals side, it's disgusting. I don't really have much to say. They threw 22 passes. They ran. Hold on. Let's pull up the official box score so we can show you this. This is. I just can't believe Zach Taylor is still a thing. Now, they couldn't move the ball. They had 7 yards in the second half. The Cincinnati Bengals had 7 yards of total offense. It's a travesty that they won that game. However, I understand the Browns defense is really good. So I'm not saying that the Bengals should have just came out and ripped it up and had 500 yards. I am saying that if you watch the game, let's look at the play-by-play. Watch this. Look at this first drive, right? So they go score 7.5 minute drive and a touchdown, and then the Browns go 9 minutes and 50 seconds and score a touchdown. The first quarter and a half are over or whatever in 2 drives. But here we go. Oh, Joe Burrow, first play, pass to Noah Fant. Cool. Chase Brown run. Chase Brown run. Chase Brown run. Chase Brown run. Incomplete pass. Chase Brown run. Pass to T. Higgins. Chase Brown run. Pass to Chase Brown. No, pass to Chase. Cool. Chase Brown run. Chase Brown run. Chase Brown run. They're like, okay, cool. Well, they scored a touchdown, right? So you can't be too upset. That continued. It continued on and on and on and on and on with a bunch of rushing plays to the tune of Chase Brown, 21 carries for 43 yards. They refused to put the ball in the hands of Joe Burrow. They refused to take any risks, and they should have lost the game again. They should have lost to a worse opponent again, the Cincinnati Bengals. And maybe the Browns aren't worse. I don't know. But the Browns defense is pretty gnarly. It just, I don't know. Again, better days ahead, right, for the Bengals. But it's like that we talked about with the Eagles stuff. The passing game is good, but like you can't do this. This is how you lose these games. It's not like, oh, well, they won, so how can you, it's like, but this is how you give yourself a chance to lose games you shouldn't lose, is by allowing the inferior opponent to stick in the game for longer than they should stick. It's ridiculous. Nothing else to add. Let's move on. It's Harold Fannin season. ladies and gents. It is Herald Fannin season. All right, next game. Oof, this one was a little bit gross. Falcons Buck. Oh my gosh, excuse me. Falcons Bucks in Atlanta. I played a lot of Drake London. I did play a lot of Mekabuka. There's a really nice takeaway from this game. Let's be positive. We're being positive about Harold Fannin and Dylan Sampson and stuff. Abuka, very, very positive for Abuka. If you drafted Bijan Robinson, it was very, very negative on the run game, though that's to be expected against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers run defense. That's kind of what happens. Vita Vea and Todd Bowles and stuff, they shut down the run. But Bijan, without Darnell Mooney, 7 targets, third on the team in targets, and had 100 receiving yards and a 50-yard touchdown catch on the opening drive for the Atlanta Falcons. Bijan in space, if they're going to be getting the ball to Bijan in space, that is awesome. That's very good for Michael Penix as well. Drake London dominated targets, 14 targets on 39 pass attempts. He did get hurt he dropped a touchdown. It was a tough catch, but he dropped a touchdown and hurt his shoulder on the same play at the very end of the game. Someone who played a lot of Drake London, that sucked, but nonetheless, I will say, look, it's one game, and he had 7 catches for 59 yards and 8 targets. Kyle Pitts looked pretty good. It's maybe he's healthy. Maybe he was the hurt guy. Maybe he's back. Maybe it was just Darnell Mooney being out. I don't know. I suspect Mooney will be back this coming week, but we'll see about that. Casey Washington ran the most routes on this team. He stepped in for Darnell Mooney. And if you were hoping for Ray McLeod season, this would have been the game you would have been hoping for against a pass funnel defense with no Darnell Mooney and Drake London getting hurt. You would have hoped for some more Ray McLeod. That didn't happen. On the Bucs side, I thought Mike Evans actually looked good. The box score doesn't tell the full story, but 33 routes run for Mike Evans, 8 targets, led the team by 2. Sterling Shepard was actually second, tied with Emeka Egbuka, second on the team in targets, which is disgusting. Can they just play my boy Tez Johnson? Come on, what are we doing? Egbuka targets were not awesome, but Egbuka did score 2 touchdowns. So that was very, very fun. I actually thought I thought the Bucs offense was pretty bad in this game. You can probably see that by Baker here. Woof. Really, really one of the worst passing grades of the week. 17 of 32 for 167. Bailed out a little bit with 3 touchdowns. Did have some rushing yards as well. They need Tristan Wirfs back. The Bucs left tackle, superstar left tackle Tristan Wirfs, and I think they could use Chris Godwin back as well, which is reportedly week 5. Week 5 for Godwin is the target date. They could use him back. Just another quick thing. The role for Bucky Irving was awesome. So if you're thinking about like starting Rachaad White as like you're an idiot 0 RB bro like me, and you think I can get by with a Rachaad White usable week, right? For 1 week. I don't think so. Bucky played 44 of 58 offensive snaps. Huge role growth from Bucky last year. Even when Bucky was smashing down the stretch, he was not playing this much. So low key, really, really good for Bucky. Not good for Rachaad White. Just 2 snaps on offense for Sean Tucker, though he was the kick returner. Thank you, Kendrick Lamar fan. Shout out to you. Thank you for the super chat. Really, really appreciate that. If you do ever want, I try to answer as many questions as I can, but if you specifically want to get your question answered, I would be more than happy to with a super chat. Can you elaborate on the scoring format? You can give me London in full PPR. Dude, the London roll was outstanding. Like absolutely outstanding for Drake London. Let's see if we have the I don't have the charts. I don't know why I'm going here. Let's go to player search London. Wait till you see this roll for Drake London. Week 1. Here we go. Look at this. This is awesome. moved him so obviously you see the line of scrimmage, right? And then you see all the routes, you see stuff he did after the catch, you see downfield targets, you see lined up all over the place. Drake London, he's in the slot, he's out wide, he's in motion. Zach Robinson for the Falcons. Awesome job specifically with Drake London. Now, it didn't work perfectly, but I think Darnell Mooney coming back will help that. I think another week, assuming health. So my only concern here is I would rather have Drake London than Ashton Jeanty right now. Though, with the injury to Drake London, I don't think it's a big deal, but it's also not a nothing burger. And if you're concerned about the running backs, which we'll get to Ken Walker here probably in just a minute, I'm also concerned about Ken Walker. I think it would be fine. If you're solid at wide receiver and you're worried about Ken Walker, like I'm worried about Ken Walker, I think that is completely fine to make that trade. Ashton Jeanty was an absolute workhorse for the Raiders. And we talked about how, the Patriots are going to probably be a tough matchup for running backs. I think also better days are ahead for the Raiders. And who is it that they play again? We just talked about this, especially this week. I know it's not only a this week question, but they play the Chargers. So not a great spot for Ashton Jeanty against the Chargers, but the workhorse role is as good as it gets for Jeanty. So I think if you are terrified of Ken Walker, I think it's completely reasonable to make that move. All right. Let's go to the afternoon. Let's go to that game. 49ers. I have Puka, Debo, and Ridley for wide receiver and London. Yeah, it's close. So Ridley, we'll talk about Ridley in a second too. Ridley, Puka is a superstar. You start him every week. I'm cool with Debo, and I'm okay with Calvin Ridley moving forward. And you can start Jaylen Warren too if you want to hold on to London. But I think it's very close. I will tell you, I prefer Drake London. But if you're truly wanting to get out of the Ken Walker business, I think that it's totally reasonable to trade Drake London for Ashton Jeanty. I would just feel a little uncomfortable with my wide receivers if I only had those other three guys. But if you can go get a Kayshon Boutte, if you can go get somebody, that you can scoop up and add some wide receiver firepower to your room, and you want to do the Ashton Jeanty thing, I think that's a perfectly reasonable trade. Though, just as I said, I prefer Drake London by a little bit over him. We got one of the more disappointing performances of the week out of the Seattle Seahawks. Hold on one second. I want to show you this cowardly ass field goal this is all I can think. I can't believe, I just truly can't believe this happened. This cowardly fucking field goal right here. So there's 3 minutes and 42 seconds left. It is 4th and 1 at the 19-yard line. I know, take the points, right? You want to know why you don't take the points? Is because this is what happens, Mike McDonald. You kick this cowardly field goal on 4th and 1. You march right down the field, and then you kick the field goal. And then your opponent marches right down the field themselves and goes and scores a game-winning touchdown, and then you fumble and lose the game. It was Darnold, right? Yep. Darnold gets sacked by Nick Bosa. It is tied. If you don't get the 4th down, you don't lose. It's not over, right? This isn't a situation where someone would say, well, you lose the game, which is a bullshit reason to not do something, by the way. But you need to play to win. But go take this game. Go win this game right here. This cowardly field goal with 3 minutes and 42 seconds left. They deserve to lose when they kick that field goal. And then, of course, they fumble at the end. We talked about the JSN stuff. I just want to reiterate for anybody that was not here. The JSN target share and air yards percentage was the most absurd shit I've ever seen in my entire life. He had 59% of the team targets and 90.4% of team air yards. Jackson Smith and Jigba. I don't think I've ever seen anything. I'm quite certain I've never seen anything like that because it's never happened. before. It's really not in modern football. Just an absurd role for JSN, but obviously that's a little bit concerning for let me look at receiving, because as you can see here, there's a name that I quite like. One of my higher drafted late round wide receivers, the rookie out of Colorado State, Torrey Horton, who earned a starting job and did not earn a target for the Seattle Seahawks. 13 targets for JSN, 3 for Ken Walker, 3 for Cooper Kupp, 2 for AJ Barner, and 1 for Elijah Arroyo. If we look at the snaps, he was out there. I promise you, when you look at just the box score, right, this is another, it's not misleading necessarily. Torrey Horton didn't get a target, but they had 52 offensive snaps. He was out there for 28 of them. He operated as the wide receiver 3, as we expected. I don't think Cooper Kupp is an insurmountable, obstacle, though Cooper Kupp played the most snaps amongst wide receivers. AJ Barner, by the way, for the Elijah Arroyo hive, AJ Barner was the starting wide receiver for concerning for Jake Bobo was out for this game. So I played a non-zero amount of Torrey Horton in DFS because Jake Bobo was out. Whoops. Should have just stuck to Keyshawn Boutte on those teams. But anyway, Seahawks, not a real, I'm not like overly concerned yet, but something's got to change here, that we can't do this. This can't be the plan. This definitely can't be the plan. Aren't you worried about Jake Bobo? Yes, Benny, I'm with you, brother. I agree. RIP to Jake Bobo. But the real concern here, as you see, as we just talked about Ken Walker and that kind of a situation, these are snap counts, right? So first of all, they only had 52 snaps of offense, which is fucking terrible. But 21 for Ken Walker, 30 for Zach Charbonnet. I think this is going to be a very real committee. Zach Charbonnet outperformed Ken Walker, as you see here from if you want to get into the grades, if you want to get into yards after contact, if you want to get into missed tackles forced, if you want to get into just about anything, you want to get into the fact that he converted the goal line carry into a touchdown, Zach Charbonnet did. I think is Zach. Would I say Zach Charbonnet is RB1? I'm not so sure I would go that far just yet. Would I say that I feel pretty good that this is going to be a committee and Ken Walker in the 4th round or whatever, it's not going to feel very good? I think I feel pretty confident in saying that. So, yeah. Kendrick says, what about Genty and Terry for Walker and London? And you would be getting Genty and Taylor? I would do that for sure. Better days are ahead for Terry McLaurin, and I'm not sure better days are ahead for Ken Walker unless something happens to Zach Charbonnet. I would do that trade. On the San Francisco side, let's go to offense because you'll see they ran 76 plays. The San Francisco 49ers did. And Ricky Pearsall led all skill players with 64 snaps out of the 76 offensive plays. Christian McCaffrey at 58. Brian Robinson is down here somewhere, 18 snaps. So a workhorse role for Christian McCaffrey. We'll pull up the touches in just a second. And of course, let's just look at it right now. The overall touches, 22 carries for 69 yards. We showed earlier the 0% success rate on runs for Christian McCaffrey, not ideal. But what we're really drafting Christian McCaffrey for is 9 catches on 10 targets for 73 yards. I think he's going to be a monster workhorse, though we just got news yesterday, last night, whatever it was, that Brock Purdy is uncertain for this week. He's injured. George Kittle, who you don't see, you see right above the highlighted Brian Robinson, 21 snaps for George Kittle, and then left the game with a hamstring injury. He is out for 3 to 5 weeks with his hamstring issue. This is not great for the 49ers. No Brandon Ayuk. Juwan Jennings has a shoulder injury. I don't know if we got reports on the potential absence for Juwan Jennings, but Kittle out, Ayuk out, Juwan Jennings out. They just signed Kendrick Bourne. I don't think they want to be loading Christian McCaffrey up like this, but they really have no choice. I think Ricky Pearsall and Christian McCaffrey are going to be absolute volume monsters, whether it is Brock Purdy or Mac Jones at quarterback this week. They do play the Saints, so I think you're fine with either of those two. I'm sorry, but I'm not doing the Jake Tungus or Luke Farrell or Kyle Juszczyk or MVS or whatever. Not for me. Let me pull up the next game. I see you guys' questions. Just a couple more afternoon games and then the primetime games, and we'll get you guys out of here. This is a lot of fun, though. I'm enjoying. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I'm enjoying the hell out of this. Okay. Titans versus Broncos. Couple main takeaways. Calvin Ridley got locked down by Pat Surtain, right? So Pat Surtain, cornerback for the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos, awesome defense, and Pat Surtain specifically is, one of, if not the best corner in all of football. Locked up Calvin Ridley. So why we're a little why I'm a little bit still hopeful for Calvin Ridley is better days are for sure ahead there. Not overly concerned with the Titans side of things. Let's flip over there super quick. What I thought was really, really bullish is obviously Calvin Ridley played basically all of the snaps, as did Tony Pollard, as we would expect. So again, when they're not in such a tough matchup, Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley both will be fine. Chig Okonkwo played 50 of the 57 snaps. So Gunnar Helm actually had some targets and he did play a little bit, but it was mostly in two tight end sets. Tyler Lockett operated as the slot receiver. Chimere Dike played over Van Jefferson, which is really funny. My main takeaway is Erik Beimfohr, rookie wide receiver, was essentially a full-time player, 45 out of 57 snaps with the starting offense. Again, better days for all of these Titans are ahead. This was a really, really tough spot, and I don't think we should have been expecting a bunch of production, but the roles were for our guys. Sorry if you're a Tyler Lockett or a Van Jefferson guy, but the roles for all of our guys, Pollard, Chig, Beimfohr, Ridley to a lesser extent, etc., were all exactly what we hoped for. And so, who do they play this week? Because that's a pretty fun bounce back spot, I think, for Tennessee. Rams. It's at home, so it is still a nice bounce back spot, but it's not like some dreamy matchup. Hilariously, they won this game, and the Titans' offense was pretty terrible. But the greater concern for me is the Broncos. Bo Nix. I posted this on social. What I thought that game was. If you watched Bo Nix in college, he started out at Auburn, right? He was a big, huge recruit. Started as a true freshman at Auburn. I thought that was Auburn Bo Nix. Last year was more Oregon Bo Nix is in his rookie season, who was awesome. That was Auburn Bo Nix. He was rattled. He's yelling at his receivers. He's throwing picks. He's fumbling. He's like throwing off his back foot. He's sidearm slinging. I don't know what was going on there with Bo Nix. It seemed like he really got rattled. This is just my hand in the dirt, right, from watching the game having bet overs and ladders on Troy Franklin and overs on Cortland Sutton and such, having made bets on the Broncos while also rooting for them to lose for Survivor. I thought Bo Nix looked terrible. And the grades show you that. Look at this. 38.5. 38.5. How is that even possible? Is that the worst? Yeah, 38.2. Sorry. What did it say? 38.5 over here? What? Hold on. 38.2. Why was I reading 38.5? I'm an idiot. Worst passing grade of the week by a fucking mile. Bo Nix. 38.2. Awful. He was awful. Titans D, low-key strong. I mean, they played well. They played well in this game. I'm not ready to go that far, but it's definitely possible that they're better than everyone expected. I thought it was a little bit more that Nix was bad, frankly, but it's definitely possible the Titans defense is also good. Major takeaways here. There was a three-way split in the backfield. As you see, J.K. Dobbins, 40 snaps, R.J. Harvey, 22. The real nuisance, the thorn in the side, was 14 Tyler Beatty snaps of 76. So we're going to need R.J. Harvey, I thought, looked good and played well, but so did Dobbins. We're going to need some more RJ Harvey snaps to get worse performance than Tua this week, worse performance than Jared Goff this week. That's bad because that was a high bar to clear to be worse than those guys, and it was bad. Yeah, Tyler Beatty did look solid in the passing game. He was out there to catch some passes. Obviously, you see 14 snaps, 13 of them were on passing downs. I don't know. I'm not like worrying too much about it yet for the RJ Harvey bags, but you would love to see a little bit more in week 1. But it's good for J.K. Dobbins. We also drafted J.K. Dobbins. Good for J.K. Dobbins. He had a good game. He didn't like grade amazingly, but I thought he played. He thought he played all right. My single biggest takeaway, though, is right here. Our boy, right? Why this week was so fun is sneakily. Now the box score was just okay for Troy Franklin. But hold on, let's go. He graded out okay and had let's just go back to here and let's go to receiving. He had 6 targets, right? Courtland Sutton, of course, is the lead wide receiver for the Broncos. Goes 6 for 61 and 1, the most Courtland Sutton-ass stat line you've ever seen. But Troy Franklin, second on the team in routes, second on the team in targets, second on the team in receiving. So if you scooped up some of that sweet late round Troy Franklin value, I think also better days when Bo Nix gets his head out of his ass. I think better days ahead for him. Just seeing if anything else sort of popped out here for me for Franklin. Nothing special. Nothing special. Yeah. All right. Next game. Browns defense looks great. I agree. Oh, Kramer, I apologize. I missed. Kramer says pick 4 to start. Puka, Ladd, T, Abuka, pick. Oh my God. Good Lord. Let's look at the schedule. Well, so Puka's in a tier of his own. You just start Puka every week. Matchups don't matter. Nothing matters. I still want to play Ladd. Who do the Bucks play? The Tex. I honestly think. Let me look at these matchups here really quickly. T against the Jaguars. Pickens against. I know it feels painful, but I think I would sit Abuka against the Texans. The Bucks were not very good in week 1. Abuka scored 2 touchdowns. I think Abuka is good at football, but Abuka had only 6 targets. If he doesn't score any touchdowns, we're not sitting here very excited. Now he did, and he's good at football, but all 5 of these guys are good at football. These are 5 awesome options to have. I think I would bet on the Bengals bounce back with T just for this week over Abuka. Speaking of Puka, we got Houston and the Rams here. Puka's really the story. I don't have much. I honest to God don't have much to say here. It was a pretty gross game. I think 2 really good defenses. The Texans have a really good defense. Devontae got a bunch of targets, maybe not quite so on the same page with Stafford just yet, but he made some sick catches, dude. Devontae Adams still, I'm not sure he's got the full Devontae Adams experience, but God, he made a catch over the middle that he scooped up off the turf. He made one of his typical back shoulder catches on the sideline. He still got that in his bag. Devontae does. So the real story is, I guess, 2 real stories. Puka is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. And do you notice there's a tight end that you don't see here for the there's 2 different tight ends, as a matter of fact, that you don't see for the Los Angeles Rams. The 2 that we drafted, the fantasy market, second round rookie Terrence Ferguson, and what we thought was the incumbent starter Tyler Higbee, not on here, man. Not on here. No targets, and snap counts were Tyler Higbee had 35, so he was out there. Ferguson was not. Tyler Higbee led the tight ends in snaps, so it's not over. 32 passing snaps. I just we're hoping for, if you drafted some Higbee, this is the weeks that you were hoping for it because you were expecting it not to hold on forever. And I think that's over. I think that's over. Kyron, of course, again, dominated the backfield. Jarquez Hunter was inactive for this game. Let me do the Texans, then I'll hit you guys' questions. I see you. Oh, the Texans were bad. CJ Stroud's trying. Nico played all the snaps, but didn't have any production. The Rams have a good defense, but I think my takeaway here is Nico will be fine? ? Nico will be fine, but like 188 passing yards. They ran the ball okay, but it was a lot. Again, it was similar to the scramble stuff where CJ Stroud added a lot of the efficiency with his legs, and then like a Xavier Hutchinson. Nick Chubb did dominate the backfield carries, 13 for 60, but one target, 13 carries. I'm just not sure there's not much meat on the bone here with the Houston Texans. We'll see. Again, they'll play worse defenses, and so I think that's when we'll get Nico. That's when we might get some Jaden Higgins. Christian Kirk is, of course, out, and without Christian Kirk, I guess we should do that at least super quickly. Without Christian Kirk, obviously you have Nico. Xavier Hutchinson was the guy. Justin Watson also got to play a bunch. So our Jalen Noel played 17 snaps. Jaden Higgins played 27 snaps. Justin Watson played in the slot 35 snaps, and Xavier Hutchinson 43 snaps. So wasn't some clear runway for Higgins or Noel without Christian Kirk. Hopefully that changes. And Nick Chubb, despite getting kind of those carries, played about half the snaps. All these guys played. Dare Ogunbowale played. Woody Marks played. Damian Pierce played. It was gross. For the Houston Texans overall. So we got 3 games left? Detroit, Green Bay, Baltimore, Buffalo, and last night's game, Monday Night Football. I haven't looked at last night's data at all, so I couldn't tell you what we got there. Is Worthy going to miss time? It sounds like it, Rabona. The Xavier Worthy with the shoulder injury is likely going to miss time. Sutton got there even with Knicks being the worst. Yep. Sutton's good. Sutton's a good football player. He's just like not the sexiest of fantasy options. Would you trade away Breece Hall and Ibuka to get Brock Bowers and Ken Walker? No. I mean, I love Brock Bowers. I just don't want Ken Walker on my team. All right. Lions and Packers. Absolutely dominant performance by the Green Bay Packers. Only 48 snaps of offense, 67 snaps of offense for the Detroit Lions. So the box scores are a little bit muted for the Packers. Let's pull up those box scores super quickly because they don't look super great for the Packers, but they were pretty awesome on both sides of the football. 16 of 22 for 188 yards and 2 touchdowns for Jordan Love. What I will say is those 22 passing attempts are not great. If this defense is this good, we're going to get another unfortunate year of a lot of running and probably a lot of inefficient running for the Packers. I would love to see LaFleur unleash Jordan Love a little bit, even when they're up. I understand, why he didn't, but Jordan Love was cooking. Romeo Doubs was cooking. Jaden Reed was cooking. Tucker Kraft was cooking. Everybody was cooking. Who wasn't necessarily cooking so much is rookie Matthew Golden. Only 23 of 48 offensive snaps for Golden. Now, the game got out of hand at the end, so it's a little bit understandable, but it wasn't great for Matthew Golden. He's a starting wide receiver on this team. There will be some better games, but some of the concerns about his ability to earn targets, the other Tucker Kraft and Jaden Reed and Jaden Reed looked good despite the supposed he fractured his Jones in his foot. Supposedly he's hurt, but he didn't look hurt to me. Romeo Dobbs looked good. Even Dontavian Wicks looked good. So a long-term hold, of course, for Matthew Golden, and an ankle injury for him as well. So just want to point out that it's another one of those, aren't you worried? Yes, it's not, I'm not declaring anything over. I'm not declaring anything as of yet, but aren't you worried? Yeah, I am a little bit worried for Matthew Golden. On the Lions side, from a snap perspective, you probably had if you were watching, and I view this lens through what's happening in the Spike Week Discord, which of course, if you're not a member of the Spike Week Discord, you can join in the description. It's just $5 a month to get access to all the channels behind the paywall. If you're a premium subscriber already on spikeweek.com, you get access to all of my weekly blueprints, right? How I'm attacking DFS, how we're attacking Battle Royale drafts, weekly rankings that are up there for all of these different tournaments, bets, props, everything, every single week. Plus, we got NBA best ball rankings coming out. We got all of our tools, which of course are bread and butter. Playoff best ball will be out soon. The second quarter contest will be out soon on Underdog. It never stops, right? Around Spike Week, you can get that all with one premium subscription, $39.99, and you get access to the Discord. People are like, oh man, it looks like the same thing for the Lions between Gibbs and Dave Montgomery. Well, it wasn't. It wasn't the same thing. Jahmyr Gibbs played 44 offensive snaps out of 67. David Montgomery played 25. Now, they went on a stretch where they just ran David Montgomery like a million times in a row while he was in there. So these touches look a little bit wonky. As you see here, David Montgomery, 11 carries, Jahmyr Gibbs, 9. But if you look over here, Jahmyr Gibbs led the team with 10 targets. Now, I would prefer it not be 10 check down targets to Jahmyr Gibbs, 10 catches for 31 yards. He had 19 touches. He had 19 touches for 50 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs in this game. I didn't expect just a straight PPR scam from Jahmyr Gibbs. I was lucky to get a useful game out of him given this lack of efficiency. Again, better days ahead for Jahmyr Gibbs. But I do think that in terms of the thesis that Jahmyr Gibbs takes more of this backfield this year, I think is playing itself out. We'll see week to week, whatever, right? But I think as you see here, it's more of a 60-40, 65-35 to even up to 70-30, right? Depending upon the game, to Jahmyr Gibbs versus David Montgomery. The passing game was a disaster. I don't really have much. I think they'll be all right. Sunday night, right? That's it. And then Sunday night. Yeah. Sick. Game of the week. Sunday Night Football. Oh my gosh. This game is why this game is why we're football fans. This game is why we play this silly fantasy game too. Just for the explosion games. Dude, Lamar and Allen are so good. As you see on the thumbnail, as you heard in kind of the opener. Zay Flowers. If you thought Zay Flowers, Benny says Wandale Gibbs, which is very true. But if you thought Zay Flowers was like Wandale, boy, do I have some bad news for you. Incredible performance all around from both offenses. Maybe not so much from both defenses. Derrick Henry was incredible. Lamar Jackson. The Lamar escape from that sack and then scramble out is I'm trying to think of what it's like. It's like watching LeBron or MJ or do something that no other human can do. You're just what just happened? How did he get away and then turn it into a 30-yard play or whatever? How is Allen, the throw from Allen to Palmer on that last drive is just nutty. These guys are sick, man. Those two teams, those two offenses, when they're going, are just on a different planet. It was incredible. And Derrick Henry was awesome. Obviously I'm not a Derrick Henry type drafter, but he rocked. He was awesome in that game, I imagine. Sad Ravens fans. That was a tough way to go down, but Keon Coleman operated as the wide receiver 1. Khalil Shakir came back from his high ankle sprain to still run the majority of the routes. They did drop back to pass 59 times.
So the overall like box score production isn't quite as good as it may, the efficiency isn't quite as good as it might seem. So for everybody that ran at least 25 routes, Keon, so 2 yards per route run, targeted on 20% of his routes. He was very good. Keon was very good. I'm extremely excited for Keon Coleman. I don't think the Bills are going to throw it this many times most weeks, but I think it's a very clear bull signal for Keon Coleman. I thought it was a bull signal for Khalil Shakir. I thought it was a so-so signal for Dalton Kincaid. He had a good game. He had a good box score, but he still continues to, as you see, Dawson Knox still played more snaps than Dalton Kincaid. James Cook also 48 snaps for James Cook, 28 for Ty Johnson. That's not great. Ray Davis with 10. So, we'll see. Pretty much the same deal, except Keon has to be out there. Keon, Shakir, and Palmer are full-time starting wide receivers for the Buffalo Bills. If you drafted them, you got what you were hoping for. On the Ravens side, the punt, guys. I can't believe Harbaugh punted at the end. Go out with your guys, man, and don't call that cowardly Zay Flowers like jet sweep. What are we doing? You have Lamar Jackson. I know Zay's great. If you want to throw it to Zay, fine. Don't do that bullshit. You have Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers, and you're running jet sweeps on the final drive. Like, I don't know. I don't know what Harbaugh was doing at the end there. And as you see, a huge discrepancy in snaps, which tells you just how insanely good the likes of Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers and Derrick Henry up until the fumble at the end were in this game. They barely had the ball. The other team was closing in on doubling them up in snaps, and these guys were awesome. Mark Andrews did operate as a near full-time tight end. Charlie Kohler played a lot, but those guys were not, a part of the passing game plan, which is okay. I think that Andrews will be fine. This happens, right? They didn't have the ball very much. They didn't throw all of that much. And then it was the Zay Flowers show. It was the Zay Flowers, Lamar Jackson, and Derrick Henry show. Sometimes these guys are just so good and so efficient, right? Look at it. Look at these team stats. 50 plays, 432 yards of offense. 50 play. The Steelers are talking. Aaron Rodgers is talking about how good the Steelers were on offense. They ran 54 plays for 270 yards of offense. You want to see what a good offensive game looks like? 50 plays, 432 yards of offense. That's how good the Ravens offense can be. Insane. Absolutely insane. This one is PFF, if you're asking, Sizzle. This one is PFF, and then I've been using Sumer Sports. We did a little bit of next-gen stats over here. We did a little bit of Add More Funds, and of course ESPN as well. We're bouncing around between a bunch of the different sites that I like to use when I'm doing some recapping myself. I figured I would share it with you guys that this is how I'm going through with my process. We kind of talked about this game already. Nothing really additional to share. My dog is dreaming. He's right here. He's dreaming. Like, woof, 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 woof. I don't know if you can hear that. I was like, is he okay? And the AirPods really drown out the noise, but he's dreaming so loudly. It came through the AirPods. That's really, really funny. All right. Final game of the week. Where are you? Bears. Sorry, I'm rattled from the dog. The dog got me rattled. Monday Night Football, I thought was a generally fun game. Bears versus Vikings. What I would call a tale of two halves, a tale of aren't you worried and aren't you excited, all wrapped into one amongst both of these teams. I thought Caleb Williams came out in the first half and looked really good. I thought Ben Johnson looked really, was doing a good job in the first half. I thought Caleb was spinning it. I thought Caleb was running. I thought Caleb was accurate. I thought kind of what you came into the season being like, I think Ben Johnson could turn this thing around. Caleb could have a bounce back season. Everything in the the first half, obviously he started 10 for his first 10 passing. I thought that was it. We were excited. The second half was last year, Caleb. Inaccurate, kind of all over the place. It was rough. It was a tale of two halves for Caleb Williams and the Bears. Obviously, then they lose the game from a snap rate perspective. One of the more notable things, if we were worried, we're talking about Dalton Kincaid ceding snaps to Dawson Knox. Cole Kmet played 60 of 67 offensive snaps. Colston Loveland played 38. So Colston Loveland essentially operated as the old school Dalton Kincaid. Kmet is the starter and like the blocker and all that kind of stuff. And Loveland is like a change of pace tight end, which is not particularly awesome. DeAndre Swift did operate in largely a workhorse role with Kyle Monangai playing just 9 snaps of offense. Burden took a few more snaps than I thought he might. He played 18 with Zacchaeus playing 30. DJ Moore did get kind of banged up, but he came back, played nearly all of the snaps. DJ Moore did, and Rome, of course, is a full-time receiver for the Bears. From a target perspective, again, I haven't looked at all of this. Rome Odunze operated again kind of as the wide receiver 1, but it was a weird role. 6 for 37 and 1. I haven't looked at the air yards yet. Let's look at Chicago's air yards. So DJ Moore, Zacchaeus, Kmet. So the Rome air yards were not amazing, but the overall target share was. So a little bit of a mixed bag amongst the Bears wide receivers. DJ Moore with 94 air yards, 35% of the team air yards on just 5 targets, plus a couple carries. I think it's still a somewhat encouraging role for DJ Moore. Zacchaeus did get a few more targets than I would have liked to see, generally speaking, for Zacchaeus, but nonetheless, kind of shook out close to what we thought. We probably would have hoped for a little bit more Loveland, and hopefully Burden can continue to take on a little bit more of that role. On the Minnesota side, JJ Justin Jefferson, that's hilarious, was on a bike ride in the woods, heard the dog so clearly that it scared me. That's so funny. It scared me. It scared me too. Takeaway from the Vikings is like the game in reverse. I thought JJ McCarthy was awful in the first half. Awful. Sure, they're missing their left tackle. Yeah, they're missing Jordan Addison, but you got to play better than that. KOC has schemed up awesome production from these guys, Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs and stuff. There's really no excuse when you have Justin Jefferson. I don't think. But what was really fascinating from the Vikings side of things is JJ McCarthy figured it out in the second half, a total role reversal, right? He was terrible in the first half, awesome in the second. Caleb Williams was awesome in the first and terrible in the second. And they came back and won the game. Shout out to JJ McCarthy. I thought it was a really impressive performance. I was clowning him, like a lot of people were, in the first half because I thought it was terrible. And shout out to him for proving all the haters wrong in the second half. I thought it was a really good performance. Still, despite that, it wasn't like the typical Viking stuff. Like last year with Sam Darnold, they were letting it rip, like absolutely letting it rip, pushing the ball downfield. You see this here. Let's go to passing. 25 pass attempts, 25 total dropbacks. From an air yards perspective, total team air yards were under 100 or about 100, right? In the 100 range of air yards. They were not aggressive. They were run heavy, and they didn't push the ball down the field. Was that just the plan for today? Was it to shield JJ McCarthy? Is he not ready for some of that stuff? I have no idea, but it's just something that I noticed during the game for sure. The other thing I think that was most notable about the Vikings was the running backs. First of all, Josh Oliver. That's kind of funny. Josh Oliver played quite a bit, but Adam Thielen was clearly the wide receiver 3 behind Naylor and JJ in the slot. Jordan Mason played 2 more snaps than Aaron Jones did. So if the hope was, Aaron Jones ended up sort of getting home in the box score, right? Had a receiving touchdown, which is somewhat what Aaron Jones does. But we're talking about 3 targets for Aaron Jones, and was the total carries? 3 targets and 8 carries for Aaron Jones in that game. 15 carries for Jordan Mason. the standalone value for Aaron Jones probably not quite as good as we thought that it would be. He's not going to catch a long wheel route touchdown every single week. So we did it. We did it. That is might be the truest committee in the league right now. Yep. Probably. Did we even see another like total 50-50 split? I would say like the Broncos are a huge committee, but it's not. It's like Dobbins, then Harvey, then Beatty. That one, like in terms of straight 50-50 split, I would agree. Is the biggest committee. All right. We kept you guys long enough. Week 1 in the books. We broke it all down. Hopefully that helped with some of the context around all of these different games, the most notable performances, playing time, target shares, who performed the best, who performed the worst. My God, Bo Nix, be worse. If you thought the Dolphins were bad, Bo Nix was somehow worse. Hopefully it gets better in week 2. I'll be back tomorrow. Amen. Thank you, Cody. I agree with Cody on your way out. I will see you guys tomorrow, same time, 10 a.m. Eastern, and we're starting on week 2. So this was our week 1 recap, and tomorrow we get into the week 2 game by game DFS betting, who to start in your season long leagues, everything there in between. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.